2.5 hours of GTA 5 conspiracy bedtime lore. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks because this is a long one. This whole video is built to just run in the background while you're lying there, scrolling your phone, or trying to knock out with some weird Los Santos whispers in your ear. The idea is simple. We're going to take basically every major GTA 5 conspiracy theory people still talk about, pull them apart, and then stitch them back together into one long, cozy stream of lore. No jump scare edits, no sudden what's up guys energy spike at 3 a.m., just steady, slightly dramatic storytelling that keeps moving while you relax. You can close your eyes and still follow along because the structure is going to be clear even when the theories aren't. We'll start where almost every GTA mystery rabbit hole starts. Mount Chiliad. The mural, the UFO sketches, the cracked egg, the jetpack symbol, the way 100% completion suddenly turns that mountaintop into a landing pad for something that should not be hovering over Blaine County. From there, it's believed that the Chiliad symbols bleed into the jetpack rumors, the cut content, and the later doomsday heist stuff that kind of explains everything and also explains nothing at all. After Chiliad, we move into the UFO network itself. Fort Zancudo at 3 a.m. during a storm, the Sandy Shores saucer, the underwater wreck near Paleto Bay, the weird FIB files that suggest someone in universe knows a lot more than they're saying. In reality, Rockstar basically turned the night sky into a slow burn ARG. It's also revealed that a bunch of these sightings connect back to government plots, the FIB and IAA power struggle, and maybe even the Infinite 8 serial killer clues hiding under the surface. And yeah, we're going into the killers, ghosts, and cryptids, the Infinite 8 bodies, and Epsilon hints, Jolene Cranley Evans screaming on the cliffs, ghost cars rolling with no driver, Bigfoot and the Beast peyote trips that might be hallucinations, or might be canon, depending on how much you trust a talking plant. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a normal game, but this is GTA, so the cults, the Epsilon program, the stock market manipulation with Lester, and the whole is GTA 5 just Michael's coma movie theory all start bleeding together, so get comfortable. Dim the lights, grab some snacks, sink into the couch or flop into bed, and just let this play while we untangle 15 big conspiracy clusters. From time travel graffiti and jetpack man sightings to meta theories about Rockstar straight up trolling everyone on purpose. If you end up wanting more long-form GTA lore like this, likes, comments, and subs actually do help a lot, but no pressure at all. This is a no-stress, fall-asleep to it kind of session. And if you ain't sleeping by the end of Chiliad, we still have aliens, cults, and a possible fourth protagonist waiting for you. So before we start drawing lines between chili pepper murals and government UFO cover-ups, we should be clear about what actually counts as a GTA 5 conspiracy theory tonight. Because in this game, everyone from Trevor to talk radio callers thinks they've uncovered some grand plot, and then you also have players digging through the files like unpaid FIB interns. For this video, we're looking at 3 layers at the same time. First, the in-universe conspiracies. The stuff characters in Los Santos actually believe, like Ron's paranoia about Fort Zancudo or Epsilon's promises about transcendence for a small, totally reasonable donation. Then the fan-made theories, the ideas players came up with after staring at the Mount Chiliad mural for way too long. And finally, the meta-conspiracies, where it's believed that Rockstar themselves are hiding messages in the map, the code, or even in later DLCs just to mess with you. To keep it from turning into pure corkboard madness, we're grouping everything into 15 core clusters. You've got Mount Chiliad itself, with the mural, the eye, and the 100% completion UFO. You have the jetpack and hidden superweapons, where people connect Chiliad symbols to the Doomsday heist jetpack years later. The UFO network covers Fort Zancudo, Sandy Shores, the underwater saucers, and those 3 a.m. storm triggers that suggest someone is scheduling alien flyovers like weather reports. Then we move into the more personal, almost creepy theories. Michael's coma, or movie theory, where the entire story might be playing out in his head. The infinite 8 killers and other serial killer lore hiding in underwater messages and graffiti. Cryptids like Bigfoot and the Beast, where peyote hallucinations might not be hallucinations at all. And the ghosts and hauntings, from Jolene Cranley Evans on Mount Gordo to random ghost cars that really don't care about traffic laws. After that, it shifts into institutions and cults, government and FIB conspiracies, where the IAA and FIB use the protagonists as disposable assets. The Epsilon program and other cults, with their brainwashing, money scams, and possible ties back to older GTA titles. Then the Chiliad Time Travelers and Jetpack Man, where you get time travel graffiti and NPC sightings that sound like someone tried to mod Doctor Who into Blaine County. We'll also cover Lester's stock market manipulation as both an in-universe conspiracy and a meta joke about capitalism. The canon timeline debate between GTA 4 and V hidden messages in radio and TV shows, where late-night callers basically confess to half the mysteries in the game. The shadow protagonist theories about a missing fourth character. And finally, the Rockstar meta mysteries, where it's also revealed that some clues may exist purely to waste your time. Each cluster gets broken into small, bite-sized segments. We'll start with what the game obviously shows you, then dig into the weirder interpretations, and finally connect them sideways to other clusters, so you can see how a Chiliad glyph ends up touching an FIB file or an Epsilon sermon. If you ain't sleeping, you'll notice we keep coming back to the same pieces of evidence. Murals and wall art, specific lines of dialogue, radio shows, mission briefings, even tiny map details. This is a long one, but it's built to move from grounded stuff like Chiliad into aliens and serial killers, and then out into the big meta question. In reality, are some of these mysteries unsolvable on purpose? And what does that say about how Rockstar wants you to play GTA 5? So the way this is going to flow is pretty simple. You can close your eyes, tab out, or keep driving around Los Santos, and I'll just keep talking. The pacing is a steady to fast info dump, but it's stacked in a smooth rhythm, so it feels more like someone reading you a weird crime novel than a loud YouTube essay. You're not getting jump cuts and screaming. You're getting conspiracies just quietly piling up in the background while you grind heists or fall asleep. Underneath all of this, there's low-key background music, nothing that fights the narration, just slow ambient pads and a little texture so the silence never feels empty. Visuals are the same vibe, slow pans over Mount Chiliad, zooms on murals, old screenshots, maybe a map shot drifting across the screen during a long explanation. When we switch topics, the transitions are soft crossfades and fades to black, not hard cuts. Every now and then I'll take a micro pause, half a breath, just long enough for your brain to reset without snapping you awake if you're already drifting. The whole video is broken into tiny implicit segments, each one locked onto one micro topic or one character. So you'll get a chunk just on the Chiliad mural, then a chunk just on the UFOs, then maybe a clean block on the Infinite 8 killer. That way, if you zone out during the part about underwater saucers and wake up when we're talking about Lester's stock market games, it still makes sense because each segment is basically its own mini-story. This would make a lot more sense in the context of you using it as background audio, not something you have to stare at. Every few segments, I'm going to drop a small hook or a soft cliffhanger to keep your curiosity awake even if your eyes are closed. So after we go deep on the UFO network, we'll tease how that might connect to the jetpack rumors and doomsday heist cut content. When we finish talking about Michael's coma theory, I'll hint that some radio shows quietly support it, and some absolutely destroy it. It's believed that this kind of slow burn teasing keeps your brain engaged just enough that you don't fully tune out, even if you ain't sleeping and you're just free roaming. Pattern interrupt for you. Grab some snacks if you're still up, because from here the mysteries only get stranger and a little darker. We're about to move from talking about how the video works into the first big obsession that shaped almost every other GTA 5 conspiracy. One mountain, one mural, and a bunch of players staring at a wall for 10 years. It all starts with Mount Chiliad, and the idea that Rockstar hid a whole roadmap of UFOs, jetpacks, and time travelers right above the cable car station. So, Mount Chiliad. You ride the cable car up, step out into the cold, and the game immediately asks you to do the one thing GTA 5 never teaches you to do. Stop shooting people and stare at a wall. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because this is a long one when you start actually looking at that mural. On the inside wall of the cable car station, you get this crude little drawing that looks like a kid's notebook version of the Eye of Providence. It's a pyramid shape, split into stacked layers, with an eye-like symbol sitting in the top triangle like it's watching everything in San Andreas. On the lower tiers, you see 3 UFO-style saucers drawn as simple domes with legs, an egg symbol sitting off to one side, and a tiny stick figure jetpack icon that looks like somebody tried to draw the GTA San Andreas jetpack from memory during a boring meeting. The whole thing is boxed in with red lines and X marks, like a conspiracy theorist's corkboard, just flattened into graffiti. Players notice pretty fast that the mural doesn't do anything at first. You can stand there during the day, at night, in the rain. Nothing special happens. But it's believed that the real trigger is hidden in the completion stats. After you hit 100% completion, if you come back here at 3 a.m. during a thunderstorm and stand on the metal platform at the summit, a UFO silently appears above Mount Chiliad, hovering in the clouds with this weird hologram effect and a Phi B logo stamped on the bottom. That one condition explains why people immediately treated the mural like an endgame puzzle instead of just some random texture. During the early months after release, forums went wild. People started taking screenshots of the mural, overlaying it on the in-game map, trying to match every little box and line to coastlines, roads, and altitude changes. Some argued that each UFO drawing matched a specific saucer, the Chiliad one, the Fort Zancudo one, and the crashed one under the ocean. Others thought the egg was pointing to the hatch near the altruist camp, or to the infinite 8 killer clues, because in reality everything in Blaine County looks like it was left by the same insane artist. You had a few main schools of thought. One group said it was a straight treasure map. Climb the pyramid by doing certain tasks, unlock the jetpack at the top. Another group read it like a doomsday prophecy, with the eye as some all-seeing agency, and the UFOs arriving after certain conditions, almost like an in-universe end of days. A more cynical crowd decided it was just a developer joke about players overthinking things, while some lore fans argued it was a timeline of events that already happened in Los Santos. From secret alien contacts to government cover-ups. It's also revealed that a lot of these ideas bleed into other conspiracies we'll talk about later, like Chiliad time travelers and the jetpack man graffiti. This would make a lot more sense in the context of what Rockstar actually chose to show you and what they quietly hid in the background. Because the wild part is, the mural might not be a map to a jetpack at all. It might be a confession about what really happened in this version of San Andreas, and what your 3 protagonists accidentally walked into long before you ever rode that cable car. So if the mural is a confession, you start by reading the most obvious part, the UFO staring you in the face. The 3 saucers at the top of Mount Chiliad line up almost perfectly with the 3 confirmed UFO spawns in GTA 5. You've got the classic Chiliad saucer that only appears at 3 a.m. during a thunderstorm after 100% completion, the Fort Zancudo craft that hovers over the base, and the one out above the ocean near sandy shores. The mural basically spoils the endgame skybox if you know how to look. The Chiliad UFO sits right above the cable car station, covered in FIB markings. That already suggests government ownership, not little green men freelancing over Blaine County. The Zancudo one is a militarized version, appearing over a secret base that already hides experimental jets and a UFO painting on the hangar floor. The ocean saucer floats above an area where you can find a crashed alien ship underwater. So when you line those symbols up, the mural is quietly telling you that the aliens are tied to the state, to weapons testing, and to stuff buried under San Andreas that you're not supposed to see. Then you've got the egg icon. On the mural it looks simple, but in reality, it's believed that this is where all the hidden life theories hatch from. People point to the frozen alien in the prologue, the crashed saucer, the peyote hallucination where you become Bigfoot, and the later beast peyote that turns you into a literal monster hunting people in Los Santos. The egg explains why players started talking about alien eggs in tunnels, or some creature incubating under Mount Chiliad. It also connects to the idea that Bigfoot and the beast are evolutionary leftovers, something hatched and then abandoned by whoever built those ships. The jetpack icon is where everyone lost it. Because GTA. San Andreas trained you to see a jetpack as the ultimate Chiliad reward. Players instantly assumed this was Rockstar promising a sequel to that moment. When no physical jetpack turned up in single player, people started digging through files, then through Doomsday Heist content, where an actual jetpack finally appears online. It's also revealed that the mural might be less about a literal gadget and more about vertical escape. A way out. If you ain't sleeping, the jetpack can read like Michael's fantasy, of flying above his problems, Franklin's social climb, or Trevor's dream of never being trapped again. Those branching lines and X marks under everything pull it together. Some players treat them as a subway map of secret tunnels, pointing toward the Chiliad cable car, the altruist camp, and the underground labs. Others say each X is a different outcome of the big Union depository heist, with the paths showing who dies, who escapes, and who gets buried. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a confession diagram. Routes taken, routes closed off, and the spots where bodies are metaphorically or literally buried. So if the mural is someone finally admitting what happened, whose confession are you actually reading here? The aliens mapping their experiments, the government mapping their cover-up, or Rockstar mapping every way they've been messing with you since you first looked up at that mountain and decided to grab some snacks and chase a jetpack that might not even exist? One way people try to answer that is by saying, you're not looking at a map at all. You're looking at a timeline. The idea is that the bottom of the Chiliad mural is the distant past, and every step up the mountain is a major historical beat in San Andreas, until you hit the top, and that big all-seeing eye is the present day, or the end game. So the cracked egg at the base stops being a cute Easter egg and turns into literal prehistory. That symbol is believed to be the first contact moment, or at least the first real experiment. Some players say it's the origin of the aliens dissected in the Humane Labs mission. Others think it marks early government black projects out in the desert, back when Blaine County was just test ranges and burial pits. It also lines up with how the Epsilon program talks about seed-bearing vehicles from the stars, which suggests the cult might be recycling an older classified story and selling it back to rich idiots. If you ain't sleeping, you can also read that egg as the start of all the cryptid stuff. Bigfoot sightings in the 1970s, the infinite 8 killer dumping bodies in the ocean, all of that gets folded into this idea that something non-human cracked open first, and everything weird in San Andreas leaked out after. The mural puts that at the bottom because, in reality, that's where the rot starts. Then, as you move up, you hit the UFO symbols. On a normal treasure map, these would be go here markers. On a timeline, they're milestones. One lines up neatly with the frozen saucer in the Chiliad Glacier, which looks like an older crash that got literally buried by time. Another can be tied to the underwater craft off the coast, half sunk and barnacled, like a later attempt that didn't go any better. The Fort Zancudo UFO, the one you trigger by getting 100% and showing up at 3 a.m. during a storm, sits at the top layer in this reading. The most recent, fully functional craft finally revealed once the story of GTA 5 has played out. This would make a lot more sense in the context of the Doomsday Heist too. At the very top of the mural, under the eye, is the jetpack symbol. Timeline theorists say that's not a reward icon. It's the technological culmination. You start with a cracked egg in the dark. You end with humans strapping alien-level tech to their backs. People connect it to the Doomsday orbital cannon, to Avon Hertz and Clifford, and to the cut jetpack files buried in the code. Like the military kept reverse engineering each crash until they could finally put a man in the sky. Some take it even further and say the jetpack is symbolic enlightenment, the player literally rising above the maze once you've done everything. It's also revealed that early time travel graffiti and jetpack guy sightings around Los Santos might be Rockstar winking at this, as if someone from the top of the timeline keeps dropping back down into earlier points. But if the jetpack is the endpoint, it also means Chiliad is only the prologue. To really read that timeline, you have to climb off the mountain and chase that symbol across the entire map, from Fort Zancudo's hangars to the bottom of the ocean, and maybe into places the game only hints at in radio shows and background dialogue. Because the next part of this mystery doesn't start with a mural at all. It starts with a man who might not be standing in time the same way you are. That man who might not be standing in time the same way you are is where the other half of the Chiliad obsession really kicks in. Because once people saw a jetpack painted on that mural, the hunt stopped being about UFOs and started being about one thing: San Andreas nostalgia. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because this is a long one in players' heads that actually starts in 2004. In GTA San Andreas, the jetpack was the ultimate late-game toy. You stole it from a secret government facility in the desert, you had to grind story missions to even get there, and once you unlocked it, you basically broke the map. It turned climbing buildings, crossing counties, and raiding military bases into casual errands. The jetpack wasn't just gear, it was Rockstar handing you over-the-top freedom and saying, yeah, you earned this. So when GTA 5 dropped, people just assumed that tradition was coming back. Bigger map, better tech, crazier conspiracies, so, of course, there had to be a jetpack hidden somewhere. Then someone notices that on the Mount Chiliad mural, in the bottom corner, you can clearly see a little stick figure with what looks like a jetpack strapped on. That one tiny icon basically rewired the whole community. It's believed that the mural was now a checklist: UFOs at the top, eggs and lightning in the middle, jetpack guy at the bottom, as if the game was promising a secret unlock if you solved it. Pretty fast, proof started showing up. Early YouTube uploads claimed people had found the jetpack under Chiliad, or inside Fort Zancudo, or behind a hidden door in the dam. A lot of that footage was modded on PC, but it was uploaded as if it was console gameplay, with shaky camera work and people screaming into their mics. Some clips used glitches to fake it, like standing on an invisible prop so it looked like Michael was hovering. In reality, none of it checked out, but during those first years, if you were half asleep at 3 a.m. scrolling videos, it all felt just plausible enough. Then data miners went digging. They pulled the game's files apart and found references to jetpack-style animations, odd movement flags, and what looked like leftover mission text tied to Chiliad and special mobility. It's also revealed that some of this stuff only existed in earlier patches or last-gen builds, which suggests Rockstar had at least prototyped something. This would make a lot more sense in the context of how the Doomsday heist later adds an actual jetpack online, like the idea never died, it just got moved. So the question people keep circling back to is simple. Did Rockstar cut a single-player jetpack but leave the clues in out of spite? Or is the real jetpack something you've already encountered without realizing? Like an in-universe test rig tied to those time-bending NPCs and UFO schedules? The next part of the mystery starts to answer that by following the machines in the sky instead of the guy on the mural. So if the last part was all about machines in the sky, this part is about the guy painted under them. You've probably seen him without even realizing it. The Jetpack Man graffiti shows up all over Los Santos, usually as a rough white outline of a human figure with a bulky backpack, arms out like he's mid-launch, sometimes with little motion lines that make it look like blasting off. You can spot versions of it on walls in downtown LS, on industrial buildings near the docks, even on random concrete out in Blaine County. It's believed that the most important one is the stylized figure near the cable car station at the base of Chiliad, because that pose almost matches the little stick man on the Chiliad mural. Players latch onto that silhouette and say, "This isn't just some tagger's OC, this is the in-universe logo of a guy who has actually used the thing everyone's been hunting for." Right next to that, and scattered across the city, you get the time stuff. You'll see graffiti clocks stuck at weird hours, dates that don't match any obvious in-game event, and phrases like "one day will repeat" or "time will tell" sprayed near train tracks and underpasses. Some of it is background noise, but some of it sits suspiciously close to conspiracy hotspots, which suggests intention. Players connect that to the way UFOs only spawn at 3 a.m., or how certain ghosts and cryptids only appear during very specific windows. And suddenly the wall art looks less like random vandalism and more like a schedule. This would make a lot more sense in the context of Chiliad if you stop treating the mural like a treasure map and read it as a time map. The egg, the jetpack, the UFO, stacked in layers, look like phases instead of locations. The theory goes that Jetpack Man is a traveler moving along that timeline, hopping between key conspiracy events: the Chiliad UFO, the Fort Zancudo saucer, the underwater craft, even the infinite 8 killings. The Stick Man isn't you getting a jetpack as a reward. It's also revealed that he might be someone who already did all of this, left warnings, and dipped. Then you have the NPC sightings. People report hikers on Chiliad who spawn in odd outfits for the weather, cult members who appear on ridges and vanish when you look away, or pedestrians in the city muttering about the last loop if you stand near them long enough. Some swear they've seen an Epsilon robe guy on a remote trail at 3 a.m. during a storm, facing the exact direction of the mountaintop UFO. In reality, that's probably just spawn logic being weird, but for late-night players it feels like you're bumping into visitors who are slightly out of sync. And this is where the theory stops being about hardware and starts being about narrative. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because the real jetpack might not be about flying at all. It might be about jumping between realities and genres, especially once you remember Michael's obsession with movies, sci-fi, and rewriting his own story. The idea is that someone, maybe even Michael himself, is using that metaphorical jetpack to hop between crime thriller, alien horror, and time loop slasher, leaving graffiti breadcrumbs every time the reel changes. The next part of the mystery asks what happens when you follow Michael back into the theater and treat the whole Chiliad puzzle like one of his Vinewood scripts that accidentally bled into real life. So when you follow Michael back into that metaphorical theater, Rockstar kinda slams the projector on a different reel. GTA Online's Doomsday Heist, because this is where the jetpack stops being a rumor and literally spawns in your hangar. In the Doomsday update, they finally add the thruster, a straight-up jetpack-style vehicle with rockets, VTOL controls, and lock-on missiles. You can fly it around the actual Mount Chiliad skybox that people stared at for years, and it's also revealed that the whole thing is sold to you through a paranoid tech billionaire and an AI that wants to end the world. If you ain't sleeping, this is where a lot of Chiliad's old scribbles suddenly feel less like fanfiction and more like a delayed punchline. Doomsday doesn't just give you a jetpack. It gives you underground facilities carved into the state, with blast doors, secret elevators, and giant computers humming under Blaine County. You get an orbital cannon that can vaporize players from a satellite, super weapons like the Conjali tank and flying Deluxos, and mission cutscenes that show massive tunnels running under the mountains. That tech level actually matches what the Chiliad mural always suggested: some hidden, high-end project buried inside the mountain, way beyond the little cable car station tourists see. For a lot of players, this was Rockstar finally paying off the hunt. The idea is that the mural was always pointing to a jetpack and crazy government toys, but online is where the timeline catches up, because it's set after story mode, and after Michael's whole midlife meltdown. Other people saw it as Rockstar trolling. You spent years rubbing your face on rock textures, and then they just drop a buyable jetpack behind a maze bank paywall and an orbital cannon that literally charges you real-world money if you ain't careful. The joke almost writes itself. This would make a lot more sense in the context of online being the future of the Chiliad story. Story mode is the conspiracy board. Online is what happens when the red strings all come true. The mural shows UFOs, lightning, and some kind of ascension. Doomsday gives you doomsday devices, AI warnings about alien-level threats, and mission briefings that talk like the world is on the edge of a sci-fi invasion. It's believed that this is Rockstar quietly saying, yeah, the tech and the space stuff were real, you were just playing the prequel. But here's the pattern interrupt. To really understand how Chiliad connects to Doomsday, you can't just stare at one mountain. You have to map the whole UFO network over San Andreas. The Fort Zancudo saucer, the Sandy Shores mural, the underwater wrecks, the 3 a.m. storm triggers, all of that starts forming its own invisible constellation. And the next step in the mystery is following those lights, one by one, until the alien side of the Chiliad story stops looking like a joke and starts looking like the main plot. So once you start treating it like a constellation, you realize the UFOs aren't just random sky memes, they're a little network stitched over San Andreas. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because this is a long one, and the game quietly turns into X-Files at 3 a.m. You've basically got three main saucers in GTA 5. The one everybody meets first is the Mount Chiliad saucer, the classic disc that hangs right above the cable car station. It only shows up after you hit 100% completion, and it locks itself to that exact 3 a.m. window during a thunderstorm. No storm, no saucer. It's believed that this is Rockstar forcing you into a ritual. Finish literally everything, then stand on this mountain, at this time, in this weather, and only then do you get to see the reward that doesn't even let you touch it. The second big one is the Fort Zancudo craft. This one also needs 100% in the same 3 a.m. thunderstorm condition, but the vibe is totally different. Instead of floating over some mystical mural, it's hovering above a heavily guarded military base with spotlights sweeping around like they're used to this thing visiting. When you zoom in, you see the FIB marking stamped on the hull. That detail alone basically explains the whole tone. The government isn't just aware of aliens, they're co-branding the hardware. In reality, it feels like the FIB either shot one down and rebuilt it, or they're running joint flights with something way bigger than the IAA turf war. The third leg of the network is the crashed saucer, which you can find underwater off the coast, not far from Sandy Shores in the wider sense of the map. Unlike the Chiliad and Zancudo UFOs, this one is dead. It's half buried in sand, covered in moss and coral, with no lights, no movement, and no 3 a.m. requirement. You can swim around it whenever you want. The wreck looks older than the current story, like it's been sitting there for decades while Blaine County just kept cooking meth on the shoreline. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a long-running cover-up. The active saucers only appear when the game knows you've seen everything else, like the world is finally letting you in on the secret. The Zancudo craft suggests the FIB has turned alien tech into a black-budget project, while the Chiliad saucer hangs over a mural that might be a map of their flight path. The underwater wreck feels like the original incident that started all of this. The crash that gave the FIB something to reverse engineer in the first place. So if these three form a triangle in the sky and under the sea, you have to ask, if this UFO network is real inside the lore, what exactly are they mapping, or watching, in Los Santos? So if these three are mapping something, Rockstar does something sneaky. They actually show you the why in the very first playable minutes of GTA 5, before you even know what a chop is. During the prologue in Ludendorff, if you pull off the road and look under the frozen river, you can see it. A dead alien, half encased in ice, like a Roswell exhibit someone forgot to finish. You're meant to be running from cops, but Rockstar knows some of you are nosy, so they hide a full alien body under your tires. That early, it's not just a gag. It plants the idea that extraterrestrials have been around since at least the late 90s in this universe, long before the Chiliad hunters started drawing lines on screenshots. It also revealed that North Yankton might be one of the original crash sites, the cold storage where the government first got its hands on something non-human. Jump forward to Fort Zancudo and the vibes get way less subtle. On the surface, it's just a generic military base, but as you sneak around during missions, you see hangars big enough to swallow a UFO and interior spaces that feel wrong for normal hardware. Long, sterile corridors, blast doors that never open, elevators that don't have a prompt. It's believed that somewhere under those runways is exactly where you'd stash a recovered saucer. Players glitching inside have found odd, half-finished rooms and lab-like spaces that suggest cut content. In reality, even the working areas tell on themselves. You've got the secret research structure on the west side of the base, jets scrambling if you get too close to certain hangars, and that one bunker-style building that looks like it was copied straight out of an Area 51 documentary. It explains why one of the late-game UFOs actually appears over Zancudo at 3 a.m. in storms like it's clocking in for a shift. Omega ties it all together from the outside. He's that Sandy Shores conspiracy guy who has you collect 50 spaceship parts, and he talks like the History Channel melted his brain. During his dialogue, he insists they've been here for ages, that the government knows, that contact has already happened. His ramshackle spaceship payoff looks like junk, but the quest quietly confirms that alien tech is scattered all over the map, not just in one wreck. So a lot of fans link these pieces into one chain. The underwater saucer near Chiliad is believed to be an early crash or a shot-down craft, maybe the same program that left the North Yankton body in the ice. The theory goes that the FIB and military recovered what they could, moved the workable tech into Zancudo's underground labs, and used Mount Chiliad as some kind of monitoring or testing site, which would make the mural less of a treasure map and more of an operations board. And if you ain't sleeping yet, grab some snacks, because one of Blaine County's most disturbing cold cases might brush up against this network in a way players almost never connect. A serial killer leaving clues in the same water where the aliens fell. And while you're still thinking about crashed saucers and secret government bunkers, the game throws you one of its strangest human antennas to the sky. Omega. Omega is that wiry, bug-eyed UFO believer you meet out in Sandy Shores, hanging around a junkyard like it's a launch pad. He runs the Far Out mission strand, and he's convinced that alien ship parts have been scattered across the entire map. During his questline, he sends Franklin on a scavenger hunt for 50 spaceship parts, hidden in tunnels, on rooftops and backyards, and even floating above water, which already links him thematically to all those underwater saucers you just heard about. The way Omega talks explains a lot about how Rockstar sees conspiracy hunters. He claims he's in contact with them, that they've been here for ages, and that once the craft is rebuilt, he'll be taken away. After you collect every part, he unveils this bizarre little space van hybrid and drives off into the night, with flashing lights and weird sounds that might be alien tech or might just be Blaine County engineering. It's believed that this whole scavenger hunt is Rockstar winking at you, because Omega is basically you, poking every corner of the map, convinced all these tiny pieces add up to a bigger machine or a hidden message. If you ain't sleeping, that mirror gets even clearer when you look at the Epsilon program. The Epsilon program is the opposite of Omega in almost every way. Where he's broken the desert, they're a rich Vinewood cult with glossy brochures, celebrity endorsements, and a compound in the Vinewood Hills. Their whole thing is Kiflim, and a fake cosmic philosophy about multiple past lives, blue robes, and donating absurd amounts of money to become more enlightened. During Michael's Epsilon missions, it's also revealed that they use personality tests, isolation, and busy work like walking through the desert in robes just to break people down while draining their bank accounts. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a simple scam, but the game keeps throwing in just enough weirdness to keep the conspiracy alive. Epsilon symbols pop up near UFO locations, their radio ads ramble about other dimensions, and some fans point out that the Infinite 8 killer graffiti appears not too far from Epsilon-heavy areas, which suggests a deeper net of believers and cover-ups. So you end up with two poles of the same phenomenon. Omega is the grassroots prophet, digging through trash and believing every light in the sky is a sign. Epsilon is the elite version, private jets, lawyers, and maybe real information about what's actually been flying over Chiliad since the 1950s. In reality, Rockstar is probably just stacking satire on satire, but players connect the dots anyway, because that's what the game trained you to do. And while some people are staring at the sky, waiting for Kiflum or a tractor beam, other believers are focused on something way closer to the ground. They're looking into storm drains, rock faces, and the darkest corners of Los Santos, where carved numbers and bloody poems point to a different kind of true believer, the infinite 8 killer. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks because this is a long one, and the next rabbit hole doesn't even come with a mission marker. The infinite 8 killer isn't a cutscene or a contact on your phone, it's just writing on the wall that's been staring at you since 2013. You start seeing it around the coast and in Blaine County. Faded white paint on rock faces and concrete. 8 is just infinity stood up. 1 is done, 2 was fun, 3 tried to run. You get lines about 8 victims, about drowning, about the water taking them. Sometimes it's just a big shaky 8 with a line through it, or the word infinite scrawled like a kid did it during detention. It's believed that all of this is the same guy talking, leaving a trail only the most bored, sleep-deprived players would ever follow. What makes it creepier is that the game never points you at it. No stranger mission, no email from Lester, no late-night Weasel news report. These clues are never part of a main mission, or even a named side quest, which explains why so many people finished the story, 100% the map, and still had no idea Los Santos was hiding a serial killer. In reality, you're supposed to just drive past, chasing a stunt jump or a spaceship part, while a confession is literally drying on the wall next to you. When fans started mapping every phrase, a story formed. The killer talks about all 8 will drown, about luring victims to the water, about the ocean keeping his secrets. Some of the graffiti is near storm drains and culverts, some near cliffs overlooking the sea, and there's even a theory that he targeted kids or teenagers because of the childish handwriting and the way he talks about little mistakes that had to be washed away. It's also revealed that an 8th day and 8th hour keep coming up, which suggests ritual, not just random murder. People connect him to Epsilon too, since the infinity symbol and the number 8 show up in their iconography. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a cult cleaning up its problems, rather than one random guy with a paint can. And it ties back into that idea that powerful groups in GTA use weird beliefs to excuse very normal evil. The really chilling part is realizing you've probably walked or driven past half these messages already. You parked at a beach party, robbed a liquor store, hid from the cops under a bridge, and right there, above your head, was a poem about body number 4. No music sting, no achievement, just ambient horror waiting for someone to stop sprinting for once. So why would Rockstar hide a fully formed, incredibly dark serial killer storyline in the background like that? Is it just flavor? Or is it another piece of a bigger conspiracy web, connecting cults, missing people, and what's actually going on under the surface of San Andreas? So to answer that, you kind of have to sit with the actual Infinite 8 messages for a second. If you ain't sleeping yet, this is where it gets weirdly poetic and way more calculated than some bored dev scribbling on a rock. The core phrases keep repeating ideas about drowning, cycles, and the number 8. You see stuff like 1 is done, 2 was fun, 3 tried to run, and then lines that mention deep and water and taken by the tide, which strongly suggest the victims weren't just dumped in the desert. It's believed that all 8 were drowned, one by one, almost like the killer was working through a ritual checklist instead of just hiding bodies. The way the writing circles back, talking about again and round, explains why people link it to the shape of an 8 itself. Because once you start reading it like a ritual, the location choices get way more suspicious. A lot of the graffiti sits along the coast roads, on cliffs and overlooks where you can literally see the ocean swallowing the horizon. Other tags are up near the reservoirs and rivers feeding into the Alamo Sea. Then you've got that infamous underwater saucer north of Humane Labs, sitting in the dark with nothing but fish and conspiracy theorists visiting it at 3 a.m. Players notice that some of the Infinite 8 messages line up almost in a trail pointing toward the sea, which suggests the killer could have been using boats, dragging victims out, and dumping them overboard near that whole UFO zone. This would make a lot more sense in the context of cult activity than a lone drifter. That's where the Epsilon program theory comes in. A few inscriptions are close to Epsilon-related areas in Vinewood and out in the desert, and the themes overlap in a really creepy way. Epsilon talks about enlightenment through suffering, cleansing the self, and leaving this existence behind. The Infinite 8 killer talks about washing away, becoming nothing, and the 8th will make it right. It's also revealed that Kiflon believers donate everything, disappear into compounds, and sometimes just don't come back. In reality, that sounds a lot like people who wouldn't be reported missing until it's way too late. The number 8 itself is doing a lot of work here. On its side, it's the infinity symbol, which ties into the again and again wording and the idea that these deaths are part of a cycle, not random kills. Some fans think each victim is a step in a loop of death and rebirth, almost like the killer believes they're helping people reincarnate. Others connect the 8 to Chiliad's mural, saying the egg, the jetpack, and the UFO might be stages in a countdown that mirrors the 8 victims. It's believed that the killer might have seen themselves as part of the same cosmic pattern the mural is hinting at, just on a smaller, bloodier scale. And if that's true, then the story doesn't really end with 8 bodies. Around Blaine County, you already have Jolene's ghost on the cliffs, phantom cars on lonely roads, strange screams across the Alamo Sea during storms. What if those hauntings aren't just one-off spooks, but echoes from rituals like Infinite 8 that never fully close the loop, and something out there is still waiting for the next cycle to start? So if you ain't sleeping after Infinite 8, Jolene is kind of the face of all that unfinished business. You go from numbers carved into rocks to an actual dead woman carved into the landscape, just standing there on Mount Gordo like the game finally decided to stop being subtle for one night. The Mount Gordo ghost encounter is one of the only times GTA 5 just straight up does a classic haunting. If you hike or drive up to the eastern cliffs of Mount Gordo between 11 p.m. and midnight in-game, you'll see her. A pale white figure of a woman in an old dress, hovering on the edge, hair blowing in the wind. At her feet, written in blood on the rock, is a single word, Jock. It's not a random horror Easter egg, it's a name tag for a crime scene. Jolene Cranley Evans was a Blaine County local married to Jackson Jock Cranley, the stuntman turned actor turned politician you hear about running for governor on the radio. Decades before the events of GTA 5, they were on that same cliff. Jock wanted to leave their small-town tourist business behind and chase fame in Vinewood. Jolene wanted to stay. During an argument, she slipped off the edge and died. Jock claimed it was an accident, but the locals believed he pushed her because he was desperate to cut ties and reinvent himself. It's also revealed that Jock was investigated but never convicted, which already suggests someone with money and connections smoothing things over. In reality, you're listening to his campaign ads talk about family values while his dead wife is literally spelling his name in blood on a rock. That contrast explains why this haunting hits harder than just a jump scare. The way the ghost behaves is important. Jolene only appears if you're far enough away. Zoom in with a sniper scope, she's clear as day. Try to walk up to her and she vanishes before you can get close. You can't interact, can't help, can't even confirm she's real to anyone else. Los Santos is haunted, but the proof always dissolves when you move in, like the city itself is gaslighting you. That distance mechanic fits the bigger pattern of GTA 5's conspiracies. Crimes by powerful men are visible enough that everyone kind of knows, but never solid enough to stick. Jock gets a political career, Jolene gets stuck in a time loop, the FIB stages terror plots, the Epsilon program buries abuse under tax-exempt paperwork, and all the bodies just turn into rumors, radio chatter, or ghosts on hillsides. Pattern interrupt for you. Jolene isn't even the only thing out there trying to kill you from beyond the grave. Around Blaine County, it's believed that some of the ghost cars you see rolling down hills with no driver are tied to crash victims, and players report phantom headlights tailing them on lonely roads during storms. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a world where energy, trauma, and bad decisions literally stain the map. So grab some snacks because Jolene is just the start. From cursed tunnels with strange screams to abandoned mine shafts and those UFOs that only show up at 3 a.m. in specific weather, the game keeps dropping hints that the supernatural side of San Andreas is way bigger than one angry spirit on a cliff. And if you ain't sleeping after Jolene, Blaine County really doesn't help, because this is where the game starts throwing cars at you. Literally. Players driving through the back roads near Mount Chiliad or the Gran Senora Desert at night report phantom cars that roll down hills with nobody inside, headlights off, perfectly lined up to T-bone you. In reality, the engine is just spawning parked vehicles on slopes, the handbrakes fail, and gravity does the rest. But the way it happens is what sells the legend. You'll be alone on a dirt track, no traffic for minutes. Then a rusty Emperor or an old Glendale slowly creeps out of the darkness, steering just enough to stay on the path like it's tracking you. It's believed that some of these spawns are tied to specific chords and times, so when it repeats for multiple players, it starts to feel scripted instead of random. Some people swear the phantom cars attack them near the Chiliad cable car station or on the roads above the altruist camp, ramming them off cliffs and then vanishing when they go back to look. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a horror game, but GTA 5 plays it totally straight. No jump scare, no payoff. Just you, a wrecked car, and a kill cam that looks like you got pushed by a ghost with a driver's license. Then you've got the tunnels. The railway tunnel north of Grapeseed, the freeway tunnels on the way to Los Santos, and especially that storm drain and culvert network around Sandy Shores all end up in threads as cursed zones. During storms or late at night, players report distant screams, metal scraping, weird animal growls that don't match coyotes, and echoing footsteps that keep pace with you even when you stop. The abandoned shacks scattered around the Alamo Sea and Raton Canyon add to it. Broken TVs flicker, doors slam from physics, and you get those low, droning, ambient tones that suggest something is just out of sight. These micro-legends really blow up because of how they spread. Someone posts a grainy clip on a forum, a YouTuber reacts to it, adds spooky music, slows the footage, circles a shadow in red, and suddenly a bugged NPC Pathfinder or a despawning car is the Blaine County Stalker. It's also revealed that a lot of the creepiest clips are recorded in director mode, or modded lobbies. But by the time that comes out, the myth is already stronger than the patch notes. Rockstar knows exactly what they're doing with this stuff. The game's audio banks are full of rare ambient sounds. The lighting in some tunnels is just slightly off, and there are odd, low-probability events like distant explosions or train horns with no visible train. All of that explains why these places feel haunted without ever needing a literal ghost. The question is whether these hauntings are just atmosphere, or part of a pattern that lines up with the rest of San Andreas monsters, from Bigfoot to the Beast and the peyote cryptids you can actually become. And if the map is already hiding phantoms in the hills, what else is buried in the concrete and rebar of Los Santos' institutions? And those haunted spots lead straight into the strangest part of GTA 5's conspiracy folder. The stuff you can actually turn into. Because once you start eating plants and waking up as wildlife, the line between campfire story and canon gets really thin. Peyote plants are scattered all over San Andreas. Little spiky cacti with a white flower that in reality you'd probably walk past without thinking. But in GTA 5 they're basically reality grenades. When you eat one, the screen warps, the audio distorts, and you black out into an animal hallucination. You might become a seagull bombing pedestrians, a dog wandering Vespucci Beach, or a boar getting revenge on Vinewood joggers. It's played as a drug trip, but the game treats it with full mechanics, dialogue, and death screens, which already suggests this isn't just a gag energy. Then you have the special ones. It's believed that after you get 100% completion, you unlock a chain of hidden peyote plants that only spawn at specific times and weather. These are the golden peyote that let you become Bigfoot. You hear a growling voice, the game calls you Sasquatch, and suddenly you're stomping around the forest as the exact cryptid people spent a decade swearing they'd seen back in San Andreas. That's where Rockstar leans into the myth. In GTA, San Andreas players were convinced Bigfoot was hiding in the woods. Grainy screenshots, fake mods, late-night rumors. People combed the map because one dev offhandedly joked about it. He wasn't real, but the legend never died. GTA 5 quietly pays that off by turning the rumor into playable content. You don't just see Bigfoot, you are Bigfoot. And then they escalated again with the Beast vs. Bigfoot showdown. During the Golden Peyote sequence, you can trigger a mission where Bigfoot hunts a supernatural creature called the Beast through the forest. It feels like a secret boss fight from a horror game that someone accidentally left inside a mostly realistic crime story. No heist setup, no cutscene with Lester, just a monster battle in the trees while the rest of Los Santos keeps commuting to work. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a straight fantasy game, but GTA 5 keeps insisting it's grounded. So people start reaching for bigger explanations. One theory explains that peyote isn't just a hallucination, it's a window. Every time you black out into a bird or Bigfoot, you're sliding into a neighboring timeline inside the HD universe, a branch where animals are playable protagonists and cryptids are fully real. And if peyote can shift your perspective like that, if you ain't sleeping, you might already be thinking about the other character who keeps waking up from weird dreams. Michael, the guy obsessed with movies, therapy, and alternate lives. If plants can rewrite who you are for a while, what does that say about the theory that Michael's whole story is just another layer of fiction? A movie playing in his head that you're trapped inside? Because after Bigfoot, ghosts, and UFOs, the scariest twist might be that you're the hallucination. So if you ain't sleeping after that, grab some snacks because this is a long one inside someone else's skull. Michael DeSanta is kind of the perfect candidate. He's a retired bank robber in witness protection, living in fake Vinewood luxury, completely obsessed with movies, and spending half his life in therapy because he can't tell if he's a family man or a criminal anti-hero. Michael's whole deal is that he treats reality like a script. During sessions with Dr. Friedlander, he talks about this bullshit life story like he's pitching a bad screenplay. And Friedlander keeps nudging him to separate what actually happened from how he's framing it. Michael constantly compares himself to movie characters, quotes films at his kids, and hangs around the Richards Majestic studio as if stepping onto a set makes him more real. That's where the coma theory comes in. It's believed that after the North Yankton prologue, or after an early mission like Father-Son where things go violently sideways, Michael is badly injured off-screen. The idea suggests that everything you play after that point is his brain trying to process guilt, regret, and broken promises by turning his life into one long over-the-top movie marathon. In reality, a lot of the missions feel like they were built to support that. You get heists that are basically Heat and the Italian Job, car chases straight out of Fast and Furious, and shootouts that look like someone mashed together Scarface and every FIB thriller Michael ever watched on late-night TV. Even the way the game lets you plan heists, pick a crew, and then watch it all go wrong plays like a director storyboarding scenes in his head. It's also revealed that Michael literally gets his dream job in this supposed fantasy. He becomes Solomon Richards' protege, walks around a movie lot, punches out Rocco, and saves a doomed production. For a guy who started the game complaining that his life is a bad movie, suddenly he's the star, producer, and action hero all at once. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a dying brain giving itself a perfect third act. Even his dialogue backs it up. He tells Trevor and Franklin that this is my last big score, like he's hitting a scripted character arc, and he talks about getting an ending instead of just living. When Amanda leaves, when Tracy humiliates him on TV, when Jimmy drugs him, every meltdown is framed like another act break rather than a normal midlife crisis. If GTA 5 is Michael's extended dream, all the conspiracies start to look different. UFOs hovering over Mount Chiliad at 3 a.m., ghost sightings, serial killer murals, peyote trips where you become Bigfoot, even the infinite 8 clues, could just be his subconscious remixing every horror movie, tabloid story, and late-night documentary he's ever consumed. And if that's true, the next time you go chasing saucers and killers around Blaine County, you might just be walking through the inside of Michael's brain. But some players think the game's mysteries are bigger than one man's coma, and that Los Santos itself is wired into something much darker, and that something darker might actually be hiding in plain sight because GTA 5 keeps framing itself like a film you accidentally fell asleep to on late-night TV. The game doesn't just feel cinematic. It behaves like it knows it's a movie, and Michael might be the one sitting in the director's chair. You see it right from the prologue. Those opening credits don't feel like a standard game tutorial, they play like a cold open from a crime thriller. Names, titles, stylized cuts, that abrupt time jump to Los Santos 9 years later. It's staged the same way a movie would drop you into a failed heist before cutting to the washed-up lead hiding in suburbia. This would make a lot more sense in the context of Michael replaying his origin story, as if it was always meant to be on a big screen. During later missions, the game doubles down. You get those sudden cinematic black bars, the aspect ratio squeezing in like you just switched to a Blu-ray commentary track. Slow motion kicks in as Michael dives behind cover or lines up a headshot, and the camera swings into these dramatic, impossible angles that don't really help you play better, but they do make you feel like you're watching a director show off. It's believed that this constant film language is the game quietly telling you whose fantasy you're inside. The world around him also seems tuned to his obsessions. Vinewood radio stations won't shut up about washed-up actors, crooked producers, and midlife crisis-leading men. On TV, Fame or Shame and the Weasel news specials mirror Michael's home drama and his FIB mess almost beat for beat, like the universe is workshopping alternate drafts of his life. If you ain't sleeping, you start to notice that the satire always circles back to the exact stuff Michael cares about. Movies, celebrity, therapy, and deals gone bad. Characters keep slipping and talking like they're in on it. Michael jokes about sticking to the script with Dave. Solomon complains about studios ruining his vision, and Devin Weston treats people like interchangeable talent that can be written out when the audience gets bored. Even Trevor, who's supposedly the chaotic one, rants about playing his role as the psycho sidekick. In reality, they sound less like real criminals and more like actors half aware they're trapped in somebody else's screenplay. It's also revealed that a lot of mission intros cut in with those hard, almost trailer-style montages. Skyline shots, score swelling, characters posed just right, as if someone is storyboarding every move. Grab some snacks and rewatch the therapy scenes. The way the camera circles Michael and the fades to black feel closer to an HBO drama than a sandbox game. But if Michael is the one directing this reality, that raises a bigger problem. Where does that leave Franklin and Trevor? Are they just characters he wrote to carry the parts of himself he can't admit to? Or is there a hidden fourth mind behind the camera, watching all three of them like actors on a set? So once you've got Michael treating the whole game like his private prestige drama, the three protagonist setup starts to feel different. Swapping between Michael, Franklin, and Trevor isn't just a cool mechanic anymore. It feels like you're flicking channels between three shows that are secretly being produced by the same invisible network. You jump from Michael's midlife crime saga, to Franklin's rags to riches climb, to Trevor's desert horror comedy. And the camera never argues with you. That's where the shadow protagonist idea comes in. Some players think GTA 5 is quietly admitting that there's a fourth mind in the room, an unseen planner sitting above all three of them. Not a character you meet on screen, but the thing that decides who you're being today, who lives, who dies, and which heist approach magically becomes canon in your save file. It's believed that this fourth presence is sometimes treated like a character the story can sort of see out of the corner of its eye. People point to little moments. Franklin asking you to pick a car, then just standing there, waiting, like he knows something else is driving. Michael staring straight into the lens during therapy cutscenes, acting like he's talking to someone who isn't Dr. Friedlander. Trevor yelling at you to switch back when you leave him stranded in the desert in his underwear. All of that suggests the game is aware there's a chooser above the protagonist, even if nobody ever says it out loud. Then you get the cut content rumors, which is where it gets messy. During development, Rockstar was also working on Agent, this long-teased spy game about a government operative. It's also revealed that some early GTA 5 concept art and mission names reference deeper FIB and IAA infiltration than what we see, so fans started stitching it together. The theory says a dedicated government agent storyline was either merged into GTA 5 or ripped out, leaving behind weird gaps like stray voice lines about handlers or half-explained surveillance setups. In that version, the shadow protagonist might have been a literal agent, bouncing between Michael, Franklin, and Trevor as assets. But in reality, the closest thing you get to that role in the final game is Lester. Lester Crest is the one who designs the heists, picks the crews, manipulates the stock market, and vanishes when things get loud. Devin Weston is another candidate because he bankrolls chaos from a distance and treats all three protagonists as disposable contractors. Some people even argue the real mastermind is just you on the couch, because you're the only constant across every mission, every replay, every ending. Pattern interrupt, or it's none of them. And the real fourth protagonist is the system itself. The FIB, the IAA, Merryweather, and the corporations they protect act like a single hive mind, quietly forcing everyone into the same bloody outcomes. Whoever you think the shadow protagonist is, they're still moving pieces on a board that's locked down by those institutions, and that control only gets more obvious once you start looking at the FIB and IAA conspiracies directly. And that hive mind idea really hits once you look at the two heads of the beast, the FIB and the IAA. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks because this is a long one inside the long one. The FIB is GTA 5's FBI parody, all domestic surveillance, fake raids, and TV vanity projects. The IAA is the CIA stand-in, shadowy foreign ops, black sites, and guys who sound like they read too much spy fiction. On paper, they're both protecting America. In reality, they're locked in a bureaucratic slap fight where the prize is funding, headlines, and who gets to spy on who. The game quietly shows you this during news segments, background dialogue, and those little throwaway lines about interagency cooperation that always sound like threats. Michael and Trevor get dropped right in the middle of that. Dave Norton and Steve Haynes don't recruit them, they coerce them. Michael's fake witness protection deal becomes leverage, and Trevor's criminal record is a permanent hostage. Because the FIB needs deniable assets, they turn two aging psychopaths into off-the-books contractors. It's believed that this mirrors real-world stories about agencies using cartel guys or extremists, but filtered through Rockstar's darker sense of humor. You see it in Three's Company, when the FIB has you kidnap Mr. K from the IAA. You literally rip a torture victim out of one black site just to move him to a different one, while both agencies argue over who gets the credit. Later, in By the Book, it's also revealed that the intel you torture him for is basically useless, but Haynes still spins it as a massive counter-terror victory. Missions like the Bureau Raid and Monkey Business suggest they're not fighting terrorists at all. They're fighting each other's spreadsheets. They plant evidence, stage bomb scares, and fake threats, because every crisis justifies a bigger budget. This would make a lot more sense in the context of the UFO stuff too. Fort Zancudo's restricted hangar, the Chiliad mural, the crashed saucer in the ocean all sit on FIB and military turf. Meanwhile, the IAA has that mysterious facility out near the wind farm and deep connections to national security tech. A big fan theory explains that both agencies are secretly racing to control whatever alien or advanced tech is buried under Mount Chiliad and hidden at Zancudo, and that the whole terror panic is cover for a weapons and surveillance gold rush. And if those guys are quietly steering everything, you have to ask, How independent is Lester really? His Life Invader hit, his assassination missions, his stock market manipulation all look like his personal revenge and greed, but what if that's exactly what someone in a suit wanted to test? If markets spike and crash on command, maybe that's not just Lester being smart. Maybe it's a live fire economic experiment the agencies are watching from a safe house TV, which then turns every dollar you make into data for someone else's conspiracy. And that's where Lester stops being just your nerdy heist planner and starts looking like a walking SEC violation with asthma. Because the game doesn't just tell you he manipulates markets, it lets you actively help him crash and pump specific stocks in real time. During the hotel assassination, Lester has Franklin take out Brett Lowry, the CEO of Bilkinton Research. Before you even pull the trigger, Lester literally tells you to buy Beta Pharmaceuticals on the LCN, because the rival will surge once Bilkinton's golden boy gets turned into sidewalk art. After the hit, Beta rockets, Bilkinton tanks, and if you ain't sleeping, you realize you can replay the mission mentally and time your trades for maximum profit. Then you get the Redwood Cigarettes job. Lester wants the jurors killed to punish a corrupt tobacco company, but he also tells you to buy Debonair stock before the mission and Redwood after it crashes. You can sit in Franklin's safe house, watch the Boss AQ graph spike and dip like a crypto meme, and walk out with hundreds of millions. The facade is taking down evil corporations, but the mechanic quietly explains how easy it is to turn a moral crusade into a personal hedge fund. If you stack it right, you can do all of Lester's mandatory assassination missions after the main story, invest with all three characters, and end up so rich that the Union Depository heist money feels like loose change. The game is basically teaching you insider trading 101. Get info, move first, let everyone else suffer. In reality, that's a felony. In Los Santos, it's just another side activity between yoga classes and rampages. In-universe, this suggests something way darker. A single disabled hacker in a cluttered house can point Franklin at 5 targets and wipe billions off the board. One dead CEO, one blown-up hotel, a few jurors in body bags, and entire corporations on Bossack and LCN either implode or become untouchable giants. It's believed that if Lester ever got bored of working with small-time crooks, he could destabilize half the city's economy from his couch. And Rockstar knows exactly what they're doing. The exaggerated stock swings, the way media headlines in-game instantly react, the fact that your justice missions are the best way to game the system, all of it is late capitalism satire. It's also revealed that the most ethical choice, skipping the hits for roleplay reasons, is actually the worst financial move. The game quietly rewards you for being the exact kind of market ghoul it pretends to mock. This would make a lot more sense in the context of the HD universe rules if Lester's power over the market isn't just a joke, but a hint. If a guy like him can rewrite corporate history with a phone call and a sniper, what does that say about what's canon, what's fixed, and what can be patched away in this timeline? Because when one hacker can bend reality's numbers that easily, the next conspiracy is whether he's only doing it inside GTA 5 or across the whole HD universe. So if Lester can basically speedrun insider trading and rewrite who's rich and who's ruined, you start asking a bigger question. What actually sticks in this universe, and what gets quietly wiped like a bad patch? To answer that, you've got to zoom out from Los Santos and look at how Rockstar split the whole franchise into different realities. Rockstar officially talks about universes. You had the 3D universe, which is GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas, Liberty City stories, all that early 2000s chaos. Then they hard reset into the HD universe, which is GTA 4, episodes from Liberty City, GTA 5, and online. Same style of satire, same kind of cities, but in reality they're not the same world. CJ never met Nico. Tommy Vercetti didn't retire to Vespucci Beach. The reset explains why places like Liberty City get rebuilt from the ground up instead of just aged forward. But within the HD universe, GTA 4 and GTA 5 are absolutely talking to each other. You hear it in the brands first. Burger Shot, Sprunk, Cluck and Bell, E. Cola, Weasel News, CNT, all carrying over with updated ads that act like they've been around for decades. Radio hosts like Laszlo show up in both, aging in real time, going from sleazy Liberty City shock jock to humiliated Vinewood sellout. Even throwaway background lines on talk radio reference the crime wave back east, which strongly suggests Nico's Liberty City era is canon history for people living in Los Santos. Then you've got the character crossovers. The cleanest one is Packy McReary. In GTA 4 he's the Irish crew guy from Liberty City, traumatized by family deaths and heists gone wrong. Years later you can randomly find him in GTA 5, holding up a drugstore and needing a getaway driver. If you help him, he can actually join your heist crews. That one event quietly confirms that the Bank of Liberty job, the McReary family drama, all of that happened before V, and Packy drifted west after things fell apart. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a normal crime story. But then GTA Online shows up and starts dropping orbital cannons, flying bikes and doomsday bunkers into the same map. Officially, Rockstar has said Online is set before the end of GTA 5's story, during Michael's dead period and Franklin's rise, which explains why the big three don't just wander into your heists. At the same time, the doomsday tech, the casino updates, and all the later content feel way past anything Michael, Franklin, or Trevor ever deal with. So it's believed that Online kind of slides forward in a soft timeline, starting pre-story, and then quietly overtaking it, like the world kept escalating after the credits. If you ain't sleeping, you can even treat the orbital cannon and jetpack stuff as black-budget projects the FIB never tells our main trio about. Grab some snacks for this part, because to really track that escalation and pin down when things happen, you have to stop watching the main missions and start listening to the background voices, the radio, the TV, the talk shows, and all the throwaway callers who accidentally leak the real timeline. Once you start listening, Los Santos stops being quiet. The game basically turns every radio and TV screen into a late-night conspiracy podcast that never shuts off, and if you ain't sleeping, this is where a lot of the real story leaks out. Talk radio is the loudest. On Chakra Attack you get cult language and fake spirituality that sounds a lot like Epsilon with the serial numbers filed off. While on shows like Chattersphere and the conservative talk stations they rant about government surveillance, drones, and data collection, in a way that accidentally explains what the FIB and IAA are doing in the background. A caller will complain that the government is watching them through their smartphone, and in reality you've already seen Jay Norris get his head blown off because Life Invader is literally selling that data to the feds. On other stations, random callers mention strange lights over sandy shores, military convoys heading toward Fort Zancudo at night, or weird noises out by Mount Chiliad. It's played as a joke, but it quietly lines up with the UFOs, the Chiliad mural, and the black-budget weapon tests you never see on screen. One guy swears he saw a cult marching into the desert in blue robes, and it's believed that he's describing Epsilon followers outside their normal mission chain. TV is just as bad, but it hides the paranoia inside parody. Republican Space Rangers looks like a dumb cartoon about trigger-happy astronauts, but the whole thing is a running bit about preemptive wars, aliens as stand-ins for immigrants, and secret programs that never end. That mirrors the way the FIB keeps fabricating enemies to justify more raids, more torture, and more funding. Commercials for meds and energy drinks casually talk about side effects like memory loss, personality changes, and enhanced compliance, which sounds like a throwaway joke until you put it next to cult brainwashing and the way Epsilon talks about cleansing your identity. During late-night programming, you'll hear fake documentaries about unsolved murders and missing hikers that match Infinite 8 victim profiles, or segments about alternative belief systems that suddenly drop the name Chris Formage or the Epsilon program without context. It's also revealed that some radio callers talk about a time-traveling man with a jetpack painted on a wall, which this would make a lot more sense in the context of the Chiliad graffiti and the jetpack man sightings people keep finding. The pattern is that the missions show you one crime at a time, but the media is narrating a much bigger crime in the background. Sit in Michael's house and just channel surf, and you basically get a highlight reel of Los Santos being strip-mined by corporations, cults, and federal agencies who all insist they're saving it. So if the radio and TV are already full of half-confessions and leaked clues, the question becomes, what is the Epsilon program quietly admitting in plain sight when it keeps buying ad time, name-dropping cosmic cycles, and promising that the truth is almost, but not quite, ready to be revealed? So when Epsilon keeps buying radio ads and promising that the truth is almost here, you actually get to test that yourself by signing Michael up. The Epsilon program is one of the only conspiracies in GTA 5 where you literally walk into the cult and see how it runs from the inside. Michael DeSanta is recruited through an online survey, which already suggests they're fishing for a certain personality type. After a few emails and a personality evaluation, he's told to show up in Vinewood in his underwear. From there you get the classic blue robe, the new identity as an acolyte, and a series of bizarre tasks that feel like a parody of fetch quests and spiritual exercises at the same time. You're told to deliver cars, wander in the desert following a GPS, and jog for miles while listening to Kiflim sermons. It's also revealed that every step is framed as progress toward enlightenment, but only if you keep donating. The final job is the payoff. You escort a convoy full of Epsilon cash into the desert, and then you have a choice. Walk away obediently, or kill the guards and steal the money. The game quietly tracks which kind of believer you are. Epsilon's belief system is built on nonsense that sounds just plausible enough if you ain't sleeping. Chris Formage talks about the 157th paradigm, past lives in 9,000-year cycles, and how the world is actually run by tractors and antimatter. They promise that if you accept Kiflim, obey completely, and donate huge amounts of money, you'll transcend the material illusion. In reality, all you transcend is your bank balance. What's interesting is who they target. Epsilon doesn't recruit random hobos under bridges. They go after the rich and the emotionally vulnerable. Michael is a retired bank robber with a midlife crisis and a mansion. Jimmy Boston is a washed-up actor desperate to matter. This would make a lot more sense in the context of real-world cult tactics, where love bombing, vague cosmic language, and constant financial tests are used to strip people of money and identity at the same time. It's believed that Epsilon isn't just a GTA 5 joke either. The group appears in GTA, San Andreas with pamphlets, a website, and Chris Formage himself, who already looks suspiciously ageless. Their symbol, the stylized E with rays, shows up near some Infinite 8 graffiti and on random walls around Blaine County, which suggests a shared visual language. Some players argue that the Infinite 8 killer's obsession with cycles and reincarnation lines up a little too well with Epsilon doctrine. Then you have the alien angle. Certain Chiliad symbols, the eye and the triangle shapes, and even the UFOs that appear at 3 a.m. during storms all sit uncomfortably close to Epsilon territory. If you pause and look at the mural lines and the strange scribbles in tunnels, a few of them look less like alien runes, and more like corrupted Epsilon sigils. So what if the big Mount Chiliad mystery isn't aliens talking to you at all, but the Epsilon program leaving coded messages in plain sight that everyone misread as extraterrestrial? So if those alien runes are just corrupted Epsilon sigils, you start looking at the whole map differently. You've got this triangle of weirdness: Mount Chiliad, the Gran Senora Desert, and the ocean shelf where the Infinite 8 clues sit, and almost every major sighting or cult breadcrumb lives inside that zone. Up on Chiliad, you get the mural, the 3 a.m. storm UFO, and those cable car platforms where Epsilon members sometimes spawn doing their little blue robe hikes. Slide down toward the desert and you hit the Zancudo UFO trigger, the hippie camp with its alien paintings, and Epsilon tracks showing up on random NPCs. Then out in the water, right where the submerged saucer is, you also find Infinite 8 messages carved into rock and the dead hiker with 8 scratches on his body. It's believed that this overlap isn't just coincidence, because Rockstar keeps stacking cults, cryptids, and corpses on the same coordinates. Epsilon as a group would eat this stuff up. Chris Formage tells people that higher enlightenment means leaving your body behind and that Kiflim brothers can ascend into blue light. So a UFO isn't an alien vehicle to them. It's a chariot of spiritual promotion. A cryptid like Bigfoot or the Beast just becomes a transitional form on the path to whatever scammy afterlife they're selling. In reality, a peyote-induced Sasquatch encounter is you blacking out on a hillside, but to a cult that already worships vague cosmic energy, that's proof their doctrine works. This is where Infinite 8 gets darker. The victims were all hikers, loners, and drifters that nobody would really miss. They vanish near cult-heavy areas, and their bodies or clues are always near water, caves, or those UFO hotspots. That suggests someone was choosing test subjects, not just killing for fun. If you buy that Epsilon or a Chiliad-style doomsday sect wanted to force contact with higher beings, ritual drownings or staged murders could be their way of imitating abductions, trying to crack open reality by feeding it human lives. The fact you never catch the Infinite 8 killer just makes it feel like the experiment ended or went underground. Then you add peyote, ghosts, and UFOs on top, and it starts to feel like the same bug showing up in different software. Eat the wrong cactus and you become a bird or a dog. Go to Jolene Cranley Evans Cliff at 11 p.m. and you see a transparent woman screaming in the wind. Stand on Chiliad at 3 a.m. during a storm, and a saucer phases in like it forgot to load. If you ain't sleeping, it looks less like separate myths and more like the game engine briefly dropping its mask. This would make a lot more sense in the context of Michael's coma theory and Rockstar's meta-trolling, because if Los Santos itself is unstable, if reality keeps tearing around cults and movie sets and alien graffiti, then maybe the real conspiracy isn't the UFOs at all. It's the idea that Michael and you are stuck inside a world that knows it's fake and keeps winking at you anyway. Grab some snacks, because next we're going into how that coma idea actually lines up with the story Rockstar chose to tell. And that's where you hit the really uncomfortable idea. What if you're not just playing inside Michael's maybe coma, you're also playing inside Rockstar's long-term social experiment? Because Rockstar has a history of messing with people who stare too hard at the screen. If you ain't sleeping, this is the part where you realize the game might be watching you back. Rockstar has always planted elaborate Easter eggs and straight-up jokes at the community's expense. In San Andreas, you had the jetpack at Area 69, Bigfoot rumors, and that locked cabin in the woods that people swore was hiding something. In reality, a lot of that was just empty space and fog. Players would glitch through walls for hours, and Rockstar basically sat there and let the myth grow. That pattern never really stopped. It just got more high definition. Mount Chiliad is the perfect example. The mural in the cable car station looks like a treasure map, but it also looks like something a developer doodled on a Friday. You've got the jetpack icon, the cracked egg, the UFO symbol, and a figure at the top, which suggests a clear sequence. Do this, get that. But when people actually did everything, all they got was a UFO hovering over the mountain during a thunderstorm at 3 a.m. No jetpack, no super weapon. Just a flying saucer that silently stares at you like it's judging your life choices. Then you find out there are more UFOs. Fort Zancudo at 3 a.m. after 100% completion. The one over Sandy Shores. The crashed saucer underwater near Paleto Bay. It's believed that the weather triggers, the 100% requirement, even the weird FIB markings on some of the craft are there less as lore and more as bait. They keep you thinking that if you just line up the conditions perfectly, the mural will finally solve itself. It's also revealed that Rockstar devs have occasionally poured gas on this fire. You get interviews where they say things like, "There are still secrets no one has found," or they laugh when someone brings up Mount Chiliad. That explains why the community is convinced there's always one more layer, one more glyph, one more texture on some random rock that must mean something. At that point, it starts to feel like an ARG. Rockstar drops a symbol, the community builds a cult around it, and the truth stops mattering because the chase itself is the content. You get fan-made maps, Discord detectives, entire YouTube channels dedicated to lining up clouds over Chiliad. And if Rockstar is the puppet master here, what does that make you? This would make a lot more sense in the context of Michael's movie and coma theories if the real script is that you're the extra who doesn't know they're on set. Up next, we're going to fold that idea back into Michael's story and ask if the director of his life is actually sitting in a Rockstar office. So if Michael's director might be sitting in a Rockstar office, the weird part is that the rest of the game kind of acts like it knows you're in the room too. GTA 5 doesn't just break the fourth wall with a sledgehammer. It keeps flicking the light switch while you're trying to sleep. You hear it in the dialogue first. Franklin will complain about doing this again after you restart a mission, or Trevor will snap at you for messing this up like last time, even though in the story this is the first and only attempt. Lamar jokes about players who don't know what they're doing, and random NPCs mutter about people spamming retries, like that's a normal thing to say in Los Santos. It's believed that these lines are just flavor, but they feel like the characters are glitching and remembering all the timelines you've already thrown away. The mission structure makes it weirder. When you fail a heist setup, time snaps back 30 seconds with no in-universe explanation. Bullet holes vanish, cops forget, your car is magically uncrashed. In reality, that's just a checkpoint system, but the game never explains who's rewinding the tape. During the Life Invader mission, Michael can die horribly from his own bomb, and then you're just back on the couch like nothing happened. It almost suggests that someone is editing out the bad takes and only letting one version of events survive. Then you've got the in-game media clowning on you directly. Fame or Shame and CNT talk shows mock no-life gamers chasing 100%, and the radio hosts drag conspiracy freaks who see patterns in clouds and crop circles. Weasel News runs segments about people hunting for clues in static while you're literally driving to check another Mount Chiliad symbol. If you ain't sleeping and you've been grinding collectibles at 3 a.m., it sounds a little too specific. The real deadpan part is how hard Rockstar goes after completionists. In-game websites laugh at people who have to see every ending, and cartoon shows on TV throw in background jokes about losers replaying the same mission all night. This would make a lot more sense in the context of normal satire, but it lines up a little too cleanly with you reloading a bad parachute jump for the 15th time. It's also revealed that some of the radio callers rant about aliens, government psyops, and Chiliad in almost the exact way Reddit threads do. So when you're standing on that cable car platform in a thunderstorm, watching the UFO blink into existence again, it kind of feels like the game is watching you back. Like Rockstar set up a lab experiment just to see who would still be here a decade later, climbing the same mountain in worse weather. And one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in the game might not be hiding a jetpack at all, but something way more uncomfortable. The answer to how far you're willing to go for a secret that maybe was never meant to be solved. And that's where it gets kind of genius, because some of these GTA 5 conspiracies feel like they're built to never give you that clean, satisfying you win screen. The Mount Chiliad mural, the Jetpack Man graffiti, the random UFOs that only show up at 3 a.m. in a storm. They're not just puzzles, they're content generators. Every time Rockstar leaves a line of glyphs unexplained or a radio host half hinting at a cover-up, you get another 10 YouTube videos, a fresh Reddit mega thread, and some guy in Blaine County streaming himself staring at a wall for 3 hours. If you ain't sleeping, you've probably watched at least one of those deep dives where someone connects the Fort Zancudo UFO to the underwater saucer, then to the Chiliad eye symbol, then to a single pixel in a Life Invader commercial. It's believed that this kind of deliberate vagueness keeps the game alive, because no one can ever say, "We're done, we solved GTA 5. The second someone proves the mural is about a jetpack, somebody else pulls out a line of code or a cut mission file and says the opposite, and the cycle just resets. Rockstar also plays this really careful balance game between real secrets and pure bait. Peyote plants are real. The beast peyote, the Bigfoot hallucinations, the way you can literally turn into a bird and dive bomb pedestrians, all of that is confirmed and fully scripted. It's also revealed that some peyote only triggers on certain days or weather, which makes it feel like a conspiracy even when it's just weird design. On the other side, you've got stuff like random alien graffiti, the Chiliad eye, the infinite 8 scrawls, and the epsilon symbols that never quite line up. Those feel like hints but act like mirrors, reflecting whatever theory you already wanted to believe. In reality, part of the psychology is that the hunt is more fun than the answer. You get that rush when you piece together the infinite 8 clues or finally see the Zancudo UFO appear. But if Rockstar came out tomorrow and dropped a neat little PDF explaining every ghost, every saucer, every symbol, people would be weirdly disappointed. The second a mystery is solved, it stops being a campfire story and turns into patch notes. Rockstar benefits from keeping it mythic, especially while GTA Online just keeps expanding. New business updates, new doomsday bunkers, new arcade posters, and radio lines can quietly feed old conspiracies without ever closing them. A single wall texture in a heist facility can confirm the jetpack for another 5 years. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a game that wants you logging back in, arguing, testing, and posting screenshots. But grab some snacks because we're dropping back down from the big meta stuff to street level. The really creepy part is how that same unsolved energy shows up in tiny places. An NPC muttering about the FIB, a billboard that seems to predict a mission, a throwaway talk show line that accidentally explains a murder. That's where the micro-conspiracies live, hiding in traffic, in shop windows, and in the background noise of Los Santos itself. Los Santos is built like a crime scene where even the ads are evidence. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because once you start looking at billboards and brands, it feels like the whole city is screaming that something is wrong. You've got the big names you see every few seconds. Life Invader, Cluck and Bell, Sprunk. On the surface they're just parodies, but the way they're written suggests full-on corporate villain arcs. Life Invader isn't just Facebook, but worse. It openly jokes about selling your data, stalking you, and turning your life into content. Their posters brag about invasive features like that's a selling point, which in reality lines up perfectly with Jay Norris blowing himself up on live TV. The brand was already telling you it was a surveillance machine before you ever planted the bomb. Cluck and Bell ads are even darker if you listen. You get slogans about mystery meat, industrial farming, and food that barely qualifies as chicken, while the game quietly connects the company to the Los Santos drug pipeline and possible food contamination. It's believed that some of the radio chatter about sickness and recalls is basically the punchline to that joke. Sprunk is the same sugar caffeine grenade you see in every corner store, but its billboards talk about addiction, weaponized marketing, and obeying your thirst like a command. The city is literally wallpapered with brands telling you they're poisoning you, and nobody stops buying. Then you start noticing the billboards that don't even pretend to be subtle. Ads for security systems that brag about watching you 24/7. Recruitment posters for the military-industrial complex that promise a better life if you just sign away your soul. Fake movies and TV shows about mind control, dystopian futures, and brainwashing that feel a little too close to what the FIB and IAA are actually doing during the story. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a normal satire, but GTA 5 pushes it so hard that it starts feeling like the background is leaking the truth. NPCs keep that same energy. Random pedestrians casually drop lines about cults in the desert, aliens over sandy shores, or the government putting something in the sprunk. A guy on the street mentions the Epsilon program like it's just another self-help routine. A talk show caller hints that the FIB is running black sites under the city. It's also revealed that some conspiracy nuts on the radio are accidentally describing real events you can trigger in missions, which explains why so many fans treat them like half-serious lore drops. All of this stacked together makes Los Santos feel like a place where everyone is at least a little paranoid. Every ad, every overheard conversation, every joke suggests that someone richer, weirder, or more powerful is pulling strings behind the scenes. So what happens when you drop Trevor into that? A guy who already acts like the government, aliens, and secret societies are watching him 24/7 suddenly finds a city that seems to agree. If the whole map is whispering that he's right, does that make him safer or a lot more dangerous in the long run? So when you drop Trevor into that kind of citywide paranoia, he doesn't just blend in, He becomes the loudest alarm bell in the room. Trevor Phillips is introduced as this meth-dealing trailer park maniac, but the game quietly builds a different resume for him. Former military pilot, comfortable in fighter jets and cargo planes, able to pull off low-altitude smuggling runs like it's nothing. That background already suggests someone who's been trained, used, and then dumped in the desert with way too much knowledge and no off switch. It's believed that Trevor's time as a pilot wasn't just some vague Air Force stint. Fans point out how he flies everything from crop dusters to military hardware with the same ease, and how he instantly understands FIB and IAA operations during heists. This would make a lot more sense in the context of him having done Black Ops work, running deniable missions where guys like Dave Norton signed the paperwork and guys like Trevor actually crashed the plane. His extreme instability then becomes a feature, not a bug, because if something goes wrong, who's easier to discredit than the screaming meth head from Sandy Shores? In reality, Trevor acts like a walking conspiracy forum. He rants about surveillance, government control, and secret deals, and the joke is that he sounds insane while also being right most of the time. He immediately clocks that Michael's FIB witness protection is really just indentured servitude. He calls out Steve Haynes for playing both sides with the IAA. He even notices how Lester always seems to know more than he should, and he doesn't just accept that as hacker magic. He treats it like someone, somewhere, is feeding Lester information. It's also revealed that Trevor's paranoia lines up with how the FIB actually uses him. Look at the heists. The Bureau needs dirty work done, and suddenly Trevor's flying a cargo plane full of weapons, stealing experimental tech, or assaulting Merriweather. He's the perfect deniable asset because he'll do anything. He's capable enough to survive it, and if it all blows up, the headlines write themselves. Unstable drug dealer hijacks military hardware, explains away a lot of classified mistakes. His connections make it worse. Trevor runs guns for cartels, cooks meth in Blaine County, terrorizes bikers, and still gets pulled into federal operations without ever really facing long-term consequences. That suggests someone up top likes having him on the board. And if you ain't sleeping, you can start to see a pattern where the FIB, the IAA, and even private outfits like Merriweather all treat Trevor as a shared, disposable tool. The scary part is that Trevor kinda knows. He constantly talks about people being puppets, about TV and radio brainwashing everyone, about the whole system being fake. Most characters in GTA 5 are asleep at the wheel. Trevor's wide awake and furious about it. So if he's the one guy who actually sees through the illusion, what does that say about the bigger mystery sitting just outside his trailer door? And that's where Franklin comes in. Because if Trevor is the guy screaming that the sky is falling, Franklin is the one actually standing under it, getting hit by the debris. Franklin Clinton starts as a repo man in South Los Santos, running Simeon's shady luxury car hustle, pretending it's a real job. He's stuck between Denise's passive-aggressive lectures, Tanisha trying to move on, and friends like Lamar who are still chasing respect in a neighborhood that only really offers prison or a mural. Franklin's whole goal is simple: escape. He wants out of gang life, out of poverty, out of the same cycle that swallowed JB, Tanya, and half the Lost MC. During those early missions, he's boosting cars for rich Vinewood clients he never meets, driving through neighborhoods he doesn't belong in, and it's revealed that he already understands the game is rigged, just not how deep it goes. He tells Lamar that the hood ain't the world, but he doesn't realize the world outside the hood is just the same scam with better furniture. When Franklin meets Michael, that's the pivot. One minute he's jacking a car from a fake Armenian dealership, the next he's inside a Rockford Hills mansion, dodging an angry tennis coach. After that boat chase in the jewelry store heist, he gets dragged into FIB Black Ops, IAA turf wars, and Devin Weston's billionaire revenge fantasies he barely understands. Lester's talking about shorting stocks, the FIB is yelling about national security, and Franklin is mostly asking, who we robbing and who's paying? His perspective quietly explains how rigged Los Santos really is. Corrupt cops like the ones in the Lamar missions harass him in South Los Santos, but when he's working for the FIB, those same uniforms suddenly become backup. The stock market magically reacts to Lester's assassinations, and Franklin is the one pressing the trigger, watching companies rise and crash because a guy in a hoodie got a text. It's believed that this is Rockstar's way of showing you that the real crime isn't the drive-by, it's the insider tip. You also see Franklin start to question the bigger picture. During the Devin Weston arc, he keeps asking what happens when this is over, and nobody gives a straight answer. When Steve Haynes orders hits like he's picking a coffee flavor, Franklin notices how cheap human life is to people at the top. Even his final choice, who lives and who dies, feels like someone handed the repo guy the keys to the whole simulation and said, "You deal with it." Pattern interrupt. Franklin doesn't chase UFOs, jetpacks, or Chiliad murals. But if you ain't sleeping, his confusion is the closest thing you get to the player's own brain on these conspiracies. He sees weird symbols on walls, hears radio hosts rant about aliens and cults, watches the stock market dance, and he just keeps moving because he has to. This would make a lot more sense in the context of what we're about to get into next, the hidden structures above Franklin's head that you, as the player, are trying to decode while he's just trying to survive. So grab some snacks, because the stuff Franklin only feels in his gut. We're about to pull it apart, starting with the most infamous mystery painted onto a mountain. So we went from Franklin feeling those invisible hands on his life to Mount Chiliad. But you can't talk about secret structures in Los Santos without talking about the biggest rituals you personally perform. The heists. Every major job in GTA 5 is basically a playable ceremony. You get the planning boards, the blueprints, the mugshots. Lester walks you through like a priest explaining the steps of a rite. Before the jewel store job, you case the place, test gas in a side alley, pick between going loud or doing it smart, and assemble a crew that feels less like coworkers and more like masked cult members. The masks, the boiler suits, the getaway routes written in marker. It all suggests you're not just stealing. You're following a script that's already been written for you. The same thing happens with the Merryweather heist, the Polito score, the Bureau raid, and the Big Score. Every time someone else is in the background. The FIB pushes you into the Bureau raid for the country. Devin Weston nudges you toward the Union Depository because he wants leverage, not cash. It's also revealed that even the jewel store job is quietly serving the FIB because Michael needs that money to stay in line with Dave Norton's deal. On paper, you're doing it for the crew, but in reality, each heist serves multiple masters. Your pockets, the FIB, private billionaires, and whatever unseen power structure keeps all of them funded. Symbolically, the game keeps framing banks and vaults like temples. The Union Depository is treated with almost religious awe, with NPCs talking about it like it's untouchable, a holy site of American money. The vault isn't just gold, it's hidden knowledge, sealed behind layers of security and ritual steps. When you crack it, the loot reads like stolen power from the elites, and it's believed that this is why the response is so extreme. Tanks, choppers, the whole state descending like angry gods whose altar just got robbed. A lot of locations you hit are already conspiracy hotspots. The Merryweather heist takes you near the freighter with secret government cargo and to the offshore lab that feels one hallway away from an alien autopsy. The Bureau raid literally has you breaking into the FIB's temple in downtown LS, right next to corporate HQs that are tied to data mining and stock manipulation. Even Polito Bay puts you face to face with a military-grade response that explains how tightly the government protects its money pipelines. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because this is a long one, and this would make a lot more sense in the context of the final question the game throws at you. If every heist was a ritual building power and debt with these hidden forces, then what is that last choice really about? When you pick to kill Trevor, kill Michael, or go for Death Wish, are you choosing a friend, or choosing which god of Los Santos you're going to obey? So when that last menu pops up and the game calmly asks you to pick A, B, or C, you're not just choosing an ending, you're basically voting on which conspiracy gets to run Los Santos while you sleep. If you ain't sleeping yet, this is where you really start overthinking it. Ending A is kill Trevor. Franklin lures Trevor out, the oil spills, the car catches fire, and you watch the most chaotic man in the city literally burn out. On paper it's just a hit, but in reality it feels like the state finally wins. Steve Haynes and the FIB get what they want because the one guy who can't be controlled is gone, and the game quietly rewards you with a cleaner, more professional crime duo. Ending B. Kill Michael is colder. Franklin climbs that tower with the man who basically adopted him, and you either drop Michael or let him fall. This route suggests a different winner, the corporate world. Devin Weston survives, the Vinewood deal logic stays intact, and the guy who tried to retire into witness protection suburbia pays the price for thinking he could play both sides. Michael's movie dreams die on a scaffold, while the rich investor who ordered the hit just hops back into his chopper. Then you've got ending C, Death Wish, where Franklin tells both the FIB and Weston no, calls Lester, and turns the city into a blender. It's believed that this is the real ending because GTA Online later references all three protagonists as alive, and Rockstar staff have casually talked about C as the intended path during interviews. It's also revealed that Franklin's Life Invader page and some post-game dialogue only fully line up if nobody got pushed into a grave by you. If you look at them like a statement about who wins, A is the security state tightening its grip, B is corporate capital quietly cashing out, and C is the outlaws refusing to be anyone's cleanup crew. Deathwish is the only time Franklin, Michael, and Trevor stop letting the FIB, IAA, and billionaire psychopaths script their lives. They flip the script, pull all the loose threads together, and start knocking off agents, CEOs, and old enemies like they're checking names off a conspiracy corkboard. This would make a lot more sense in the context of how GTA 5 keeps showing you that everyone is someone's pawn. Simeon works for insurance scams. Jay Norris is owned by advertisers. Even cults like Epsilon are just laundering money and minds. So when Franklin picks C, he's basically saying, what if we don't belong to anybody? It doesn't fix Los Santos, but it does break the chain for three people. But here's the thing. No matter who you kill, the UFOs still spawn at 3 a.m., the Infinite 8 messages are still carved into rock, and Chiliad's mural doesn't change. The city acts like your choice was just another news cycle. So what if the real conspiracy is that the world of Los Santos keeps spinning, secrets intact, waiting for the next sucker to log in and think they can actually change it? So the single-player world shrugs, the UFOs keep clocking in at 3 a.m., and Los Santos pretends nothing happened. Then GTA Online shows up like, what if all that background weirdness just stopped hiding? If you ain't sleeping, this is where the bedtime lore turns into a full-blown insomnia simulator. GTA Online starts pretty grounded. Low-level jobs, simian scams, Lamar hustling you for repossessions. But update by update, the tech curve goes crazy. You go from stealing regular cars to owning flying bikes with homing missiles, jet-powered cars, and a literal orbital cannon that lets you delete someone from the map without leaving your couch. The same government that quietly buried an alien under the ice in story mode is suddenly renting you a satellite death laser for a premium subscription fee. That escalation feels like the Mount Chiliad mural finally cashing its check. Players stared at that egg, that jetpack, that UFO for years. In reality, almost every online drip feed looks like Rockstar opening the conspiracy vault and dumping the prototypes into Ammu-Nation. The oppressor MK2 is basically the jetpack rumor turned into a griefing tool. The Doomsday heist facilities are Chiliad's underground base fantasy, just moved into the desert and given a reception desk. During the Doomsday heist, it's also revealed that rogue AI's Doomsday devices and secret Russian subs aren't whispers anymore. They're mission briefings. Avon Hertz and his AI Clifford talk like they stepped out of a paranoid talk radio segment from story mode. Except now they're real, they're armed, and they're paying out millions. You raid missile silos, stop global strikes, and watch NPCs argue about the real enemy while you're just here because Lester said the cut would be good. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a timeline jump. A lot of players believe online is basically the post-credits world, where every black budget project you only glimpsed in V has broken containment. Fort Zancudo used to be a place snuck into for a tank. Now it's a set piece in alien contact missions, jet fighter dogfights, and weapons trafficking. It's believed that those old Zancudo UFOs were the teaser, and online is what happens after the military stops pretending they aren't testing everything. Pattern interrupt for you. Remember when you were scared of the Chiliad ghost glyphs? Now you casually own a submarine, a flying car, and a private army of NPCs who respawn faster than your conscience. Lester explains it unintentionally. He keeps treating these escalating jobs like logical business moves, because from his point of view, the world was always this corrupt, you're just finally invited upstairs. The line between in-universe conspiracy and your player power fantasy basically dissolves. You're not uncovering secrets anymore. You're buying them, upgrading them, and putting neon underglow on them. And once the conspiracies go retail like that, you have to ask, if online is the future, what does that say about all the mysteries Rockstar still refuses to solve on screen? And once the conspiracies go retail like that, you have to ask, if online is the future, what does that say about all the mysteries Rockstar still refuses to solve on screen? To answer that, you kind of have to go back to the walls, the graffiti, the stuff that isn't monetized, just quietly painted in places you only see if you ain't sleeping and you miss your turn. All over Los Santos you get clocks with no hands, circles eating their own tails, the word again sprayed under ruined billboards, the infinite 8 scrawls counting up and then starting over. The infinite 8 killer messages are the clearest example. You find the 8 corpses, the 8 clues, the big 8 is just broken tag, and it's believed that this is Rockstar literally spelling out a cycle that got snapped. 8 victims instead of an endless loop, like somebody tried to interrupt a pattern that's been running way longer than one serial killer. It also ties into those stormy night UFOs, which only spawn after 100% completion, as if the game is saying, you did the loop correctly, now the next phase can load. Fans take that and run with the idea that every GTA is the same core story, just reskinned. 3 guys chasing money, 1 city rotting from the inside, corrupt feds, doomed girlfriends, fake redemption. The HD Universe reboot explains some of that, but in reality, players notice how radio hosts, Life Invader posts, even Weasel News all talk like these events have happened before in slightly different ways. It suggests you're not just playing different timelines, you're watching the same script get punched up every console generation. Mount Chiliad's mural gets dragged into this too. A timeline of boxes under the mountain, egg to UFO to jetpack, with lightning bolts and question marks. Most people read it as a treasure map, but this would make a lot more sense in the context of a loop chart. First contact, ascension, escape, reset. Then the peyote plants throw gasoline on it, because eating some random weed and instantly becoming a bird, a dog, or Bigfoot is basically a hard reality swap. The game lets you slip into other forms like changing channels. Michael sits right in the middle of that. A retired thief who literally hides from his life in a dark movie theater, quoting old crime films while he repeats their plots. His obsession with cinema feels less like a hobby and more like a guy who's figured out he's stuck in a story he can't escape, so he clings to other stories as a coping mechanism. When he tells Solomon that movies are dreams you don't have to wake up from, it explains a lot if you read it as a character who's already woken up once. And that's where it circles back to you. If the world keeps looping, who's cranking the handle? Every time you restart, reload, or replay a heist, are you just another cog keeping Los Santos spinning in place? Because if you are, the next question is, who's writing the loop you can't see yet? So here's the twist you don't really think about while you're grinding heists half asleep. The loop only works because you keep believing in it. The biggest machine in GTA 5 conspiracies isn't Mount Chiliad or the FIB. It's you, plus a couple million other players who decided a weird texture on a wall must mean something. The Mount Chiliad mural is the best example. On its own, it's just a crude drawing in a cable car station. But after people started posting screenshots, mapping the symbols, and lining it up with UFO spawn times, It stopped being graffiti and turned into a blueprint. You had forums arguing about egg icons, YouTube channels doing 40-minute breakdowns of the jetpack symbol, and modders digging through the files to spawn saucers in places Rockstar never actually used. In reality, that collective obsession is what made the mystery feel bigger than the game itself. Then Rockstar started winking back. The Doomsday heist suddenly drops a literal jetpack, the thruster, years after people swore it was hidden under Chiliad. Fort Zancudo gets its own UFO event. Online updates add more alien missions, more murals, more weird glyphs in tunnels and on random walls. It's also revealed that some of those textures were in the files for ages, but once the community locked onto them, Rockstar began placing similar symbols in new locations, almost like they were feeding the beast. You can see the same thing with cryptids. Players convinced themselves Bigfoot was real in single player because of the Last One mission and those peyote plants. After that, Rockstar leans in with the beast in GTA Online, Sasquatch outfits, and Halloween events that basically reward you for treating Blaine County like a haunted forest. A rumor turns into a mod, the mod turns into a meme, and the meme turns into official content. What's wild is how many clues only become canon, because thousands of people agree they matter. The infinite 8-killer messages on rocks and underwater walls were ignored by most casual players at launch. Once lore channels stitched them into a timeline, the whole thing transformed into a true crime rabbit hole. The same thing happens when people push the Michael in a coma theory or say the UFO network proves time travel. One video connects radio lines, mural symbols, and a throwaway movie poster, and suddenly it explains the entire story for a chunk of the fanbase. Pattern interrupt for you. If you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks and think about this. It's believed that Rockstar doesn't have to finish every puzzle. They just have to seed enough pieces that you'll build the rest. They drop a ghost on Mount Gordo, a crashed saucer in the ocean, a few Epsilon references to tracks of time, and let you decide if it's all one master plot or just a running joke. So the real conspiracy is collaborative. Rockstar plants the hints, you and everyone else write the mythology, and the game keeps mutating years after release. As we wind this down, we'll pull a few of those threads together, looking at which mysteries actually connect, and which ones might just be Los Santos laughing at you from the loading screen. So while you're sitting here connecting red strings between UFOs, serial killers, and jetpacks, something kind of weird is happening in the background. Your brain is treating all this chaos like a bedtime story. The infinite 8 victims, the government black sites, the 3 a.m. saucers over Fort Zancudo. On paper, it's all pretty dark, but inside GTA 5, it somehow feels cozy. That's the paradox of bedtime lore. In reality, you're hearing about a guy carving numbers into walls and dumping bodies off the coast, or the FIB staging terror plots and framing random nobodies. But because it's framed as Los Santos content, your brain files it under comfort viewing. It's believed that the fictional layer acts like a safety net. You know Michael can still go home, switch on CNT and complain about his kids, even after you've just driven past a ghost on Mount Gordo and a crashed alien under the ice. Longform helps too. 1-hour info dump, no big twist in the editing, just a steady drip of details about Chiliad murals, Epsilon scams, and underwater UFOs. Your body relaxes because nothing is jumping out at you, but your brain gets a puzzle box to chew on. You're half asleep, but you're still quietly trying to remember if the Fort Zancudo saucer only appears during thunderstorms after 100% completion, or if that was just another rumor from 2013. Los Santos itself is a big part of why it works. You've driven these highways for years. You know the sound of the radio stingers, the way the sky looks when you're flying past Chiliad at sunset, the exact turn into Sandy Shores airfield. It's also revealed that for a lot of people this map feels more familiar than their actual hometown. So when you hear about a ghost car rolling down a specific hill in Blaine County, or a cult member hiding on a certain cliff, it hits like a nostalgic memory instead of a horror story. Revisiting these conspiracies is basically ghost stories around a digital campfire you've been sitting at for a decade. The campfire is the TV in Michael's living room, the broken neon outside the vanilla unicorn, the radio static when you park under the Chiliad cable car. Every time someone retells the Mount Chiliad mystery or the Michael in a coma theory, the story shifts a little, but the setting stays the same. And that consistency is what makes it weirdly soothing. So if you ain't sleeping, grab some snacks, because this is a long one. And the comfort is kind of the point. You get to wander through all the worst things that could happen in this world. Alien autopsies in the lab, time travel graffiti, buried evidence of infinite eight with zero real stakes. And before you drift out completely, we still have a couple of small, easily missed details that tie a bow on everything. Tiny background clues, one or two radio lines, and a pattern that suggests some of these mysteries might be quietly connected in a way almost nobody talks about. And this is where the game gets almost petty with how it hides stuff. You're not just chasing big murals on Mount Chiliad, you're walking past tiny jokes that quietly stitch all these conspiracies together. One of the clearest ones is in downtown Los Santos, on those random tagged walls you stop seeing after 10 minutes. You get this spray-painted UFO, pretty basic, but then someone slapped the Epsilon Trident symbol over the top of it like a brand logo, with Kiflam above all written under a crude jetpack sketch. On its own, it feels like a meme, but it also suggests the in-universe crazies have already merged the Chiliad aliens, the jetpack rumors, and the Epsilon cult into one belief system. The game is basically saying, yeah, all your Reddit threads. People in Los Santos are having the same arguments, they're just doing it with spray cans instead of forum posts. You hear the same thing on the radio if you ain't sleeping and you let the talk shows run. On one of the Weasel or Talk formats, a caller casually mentions that the government moved the bodies from the Chiliad crash to a secure base in the desert before the host steamrolls him and pivots straight into an ad read. It sounds like throwaway tinfoil, but it lines up almost perfectly with the Fort Zancudo 3 a.m. UFO trigger and the alien in the prologue ice. It's also revealed that another NPC, one of those Blaine County bar guys, mutters about 8 lost souls under the waves if you bump into him during a certain weather pattern, which quietly echoes the infinite 8 bodies and the underwater saucer near Paleto Bay. The game keeps dropping these lines, then acting like they don't matter. Background props do the same thing. In one FIB office you can spot a corkboard with a blurry satellite map of Chiliad, Zancudo, and the Alamo Sea, all connected with red string and a little E8 scribbled near the shoreline. That one tiny question mark basically confirms that, in reality, federal agents are at least aware of the infinite 8 killings and the UFO sightings, even if they're not solving anything. In Michael's house you can see a Vinewood gossip magazine with a headline about Jetpack Man returns, sitting next to an article on Solomon Richards, which would make a lot more sense in the context of the Chiliad mural being less of a treasure map and more of a Hollywood-style pitchboard. All these micro clues explain how intentional the layering really is. You're looking at a world where cult graffiti, drunk NPCs, and office clutter are all speaking the same quiet language about aliens, serial killers, and government cover-ups. It's believed that Rockstar did this, so the conspiracies feel alive even when you're not chasing them. But as we zoom out, you kind of have to ask, if the small stuff is this connected, what does that say about the big picture we've been building for the last hour? Grab some snacks, because next we're stepping back from the rabbit hole and looking at the whole maze, and one last theory that might reframe everything you thought you'd figured out. So when you zoom out like this, you realize it all kind of started with one drawing on one wall of one mountain. Mount Chiliad and that weird little mural basically became the campfire story of modern GTA 5 conspiracy culture because it suggested that if you just stared at those UFOs, eggs, and stick figures long enough, a jetpack would pop out of the rock and change the game. In reality, that one sketch turned an endgame checklist into a full-blown treasure map. From that point, every light in the sky stopped being just a star and turned into part of a network. You've got the Fort Zancudo saucer that only shows up at 3 a.m. during storms, the Sandy Shores UFO hanging over Trevor's old trailer, the underwater saucer off the coast, all of them quietly watching Los Santos like it's a lab experiment. It's believed that these ships, the Chiliad mural, and even the frozen alien in the prologue are all part of one long-running joke about players expecting superweapons and getting surveillance instead. Underneath that, you've got the darker, more grounded stuff. The Infinite 8 killer carved numbers into rocks and left bodies in the ocean, while the game hid his confession across Blaine County like a true crime podcast you have to walk to. Ghosts like Jolene Cranley Evans on the cliff, phantom cars that push you off roads at night, Bigfoot sightings, the beast peyote, alien autopsies in government labs, and cults like Epsilon and the altruists all sit together as the supernatural and criminal backbone of the web. They make it feel like every empty road and random shack has a story you just barely missed. Then you stack the institutions on top. The FIB and IAA are supposed to be rivals, but they use Michael, Franklin, and Trevor as disposable assets while pretending to fight each other, which explains why every rescue the country mission somehow turns into a heist. Lester's stock market hits turn insider trading into a minigame, but also into meta commentary on how rigged capitalism is if you know the script. Epsilon runs mind control and money scams out of Vinewood, while Life Invader, Richard's Majestic, and a dozen fake brands quietly joke about tech bros, Hollywood creeps, and corporate brainwashing during your drive to the next mission. On top of that, you've got the meta layer. Michael's coma or movie theory suggests the whole story might just be a midlife crisis dream directed by himself, while shadow protagonist ideas and cut agent rumors make you feel like someone else was supposed to be in the room the whole time. People argue about the HD timeline, about how GTA 4, GTA 5, and online fit together, and if you ain't sleeping, you can lose hours reading code dig-ups and dev interviews that may or may not be trolling. It's also revealed that Rockstar loves to dangle ARG-style clues just far enough out of reach that you never fully solve anything. And if some of that blurred together for you, that's fine. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a corkboard with red string. But the cozy part of a lore binge like this is letting it all feel a little dreamlike. You remember the vibes, the big shapes, the way Chiliad, UFOs, killers, ghosts, and agencies all overlap, even if you don't remember every date or file name. The point isn't to memorize every theory. It's to feel how dense Los Santos actually is. Because we're not done yet. Now that you've seen the whole web, we can finally talk about the one last big picture theory that tries to tie all of this together, and why it might say more about the players than the game. So once you start talking about one big picture theory that ties everything together, you kind of hit a wall. Because at some point you run into the stuff that's never going to be fully solved, no matter how many forum posts you read or how many rainy 3 a.m. sessions you spend on Mount Chiliad. The Chiliad mural is the perfect example. Players treated it like a contract. You put in 100% completion, Rockstar gives you a jetpack. Instead you get a UFO, some strange lights, and a lot of questions. The mural suggests a sequence, eggs and saucers and that little figure at the top, but it never clearly explains if that figure is you, a jetpack, a time traveler, or just some developer laughing in a meeting 10 years ago. It's believed that parts of it line up with the UFO network, but the ultimate meaning stays just out of reach. Same thing with Infinite 8. You find the graffiti, the underwater car, the body, all those numbers scrawled around the map. It's also revealed that the dates and phrasing loosely point to a serial killer cold case, maybe tied to Epsilon, maybe just another piece of Los Santos urban legend. You can reconstruct a rough story of victims and a killer who vanished, but you never get the satisfying mission marker. No final cutscene where Lester explains it all like a true crime podcast, and some of it probably is just red herrings. A texture artist drops a weird symbol on a wall. A writer throws in a line about time travelers on Chiliad, and the community spends years decoding what was never meant to be decoded. In reality, that gap between what's intentional and what's accidental is where a lot of GTA V's magic lives. The game never comes out and tells you which is which, because not knowing keeps Los Santos feeling alive. When you drive past that mural at night, or skim over the ocean where the Infinite 8 car is rusting away, It feels like a city that isn't done talking yet, like there's still one more late-night radio segment or drunk NPC conversation you haven't heard. If you ain't sleeping, you can sit there and let the map feel bigger than the missions you've already finished. So you're kind of invited to pick your own version. Maybe you like the alien angle, where Chiliad is a ritual, and the FIB is quietly working with UFOs under Fort Zancudo. Maybe you prefer the government plot reading, where every ghost, cult, and serial killer is part of a long surveillance experiment. Or maybe you see it all as pure satire, Rockstar trolling everyone who tried to data mine their way to a jetpack. This would make a lot more sense in the context of how you actually play. Every new story run, every random GTA Online session, is a chance to notice one more sticker in a safe house, one more half-heard Life Invader rant, one more clue that might mean everything or nothing. You slow down at a billboard you always ignored, or walk through a tunnel you usually speed past, and suddenly the mural or Infinite 8 feels different again. So as we wind things down, just let that uncertainty be comfortable. You don't have to solve Los Santos before you sleep. You just have to know it's still hiding things from you. And that tomorrow, if you load back in and grab some snacks, the city will be waiting with the same unsolved stories. And maybe one new detail you swear wasn't there before. And that's kind of the secret bonus here. You're allowed to decide which version of Los Santos you actually live in. The game gives you Mount Chiliad murals, UFOs at 3 a.m., Infinite 8 messages, Epsilon robes, and it just walks away. You get to pick what sticks. If you ain't sleeping, your brain is already doing it in the background. So maybe in your headcanon, the Chiliad mural really is a treasure map, and the egg isn't some random UFO. It's Michael's movie coma brain trying to process every conspiracy he's ever seen on TV. Every alien, every jetpack rumor, every cult sermon on the radio is just bleeding into his subconscious because he watched too many bad Vinewood sci-fi films before the prologue. This would make a lot more sense in the context of how often characters talk like they're in a script. Or you flip it. You decide the aliens are absolutely real. The Fort Zancudo saucer is government tech, and Michael's movie theory is just Epsilon propaganda pumped through talk radio to keep people from asking why there's a flying saucer over a military base. It's believed that the FIB and IAA are already manipulating the protagonists, so why wouldn't they also seed fake "it's all a dream" stories to make you doubt what you're seeing during those late-night drives? You can also start mixing stuff that the game never officially connects. So the Infinite 8 killings? In your version, that's an early Epsilon offshoot, a failed experiment in mind control, before Chris Formage figured out he could just take people's money instead. The ghost of Jolene on Mount Gordo might be tied to a hidden serial killer who later inspired the Chiliad cult. Bigfoot could be a peyote vision, or he could be what happens when those Chiliad time travelers experiment on people who wander into the woods after midnight. In reality, this is exactly how a lot of roleplay servers and fan fiction already treat it. They grab the UFO network, the doomsday jetpack bunker, the stock market manipulation, and they stitch it into one long conspiracy where Lester's basically a doomsday prepper prophet and Ron was accidentally right about everything. The same clues become totally different stories depending on who's writing. And Rockstar kind of invites that because this is a sandbox built for you to break. There's no wrong way to connect the dots. If you want a fourth shadow protagonist quietly cleaning up Infinite 8 clues while Franklin is doing repo work, that's valid. If you decide the underwater saucer is just a movie prop from a cancelled Solomon Richards project, that also explains a lot. So as we drift into the last stretch, just keep your version of Los Santos in your head. Let it keep evolving after you close the game. And if you're somehow still awake, you can always come back tomorrow, grab some snacks, and test a new theory on the same old streets. Because we've still got a few more threads to pull before we turn the lights out on this city. So as we're pulling those last threads, this is kind of the part where the city gets quiet. By now you might be half asleep, phone on the nightstand, or you're tabbed out doing something else while Los Santos just hums in the background. Maybe you caught every single detail about the FIB, the Epsilon program, and the Vinewood creeps. Or maybe you only tuned back in when you heard something about a jetpack and a UFO over Mount Chiliad. Either way, you're still here in some form, and that already explains a lot about the kind of player you are. If you ain't sleeping and your eyes are actually still on the screen, drop your favorite GTA 5 conspiracy or headcanon down in the comments. It can be something big like, you're convinced Michael is in a coma, and the whole game is him mixing every movie he's ever watched with his own guilt. Or something tiny, like you believe the ghost of Jolene Cranley Evans is tied to the Infinite 8 killers because of the way her spawn time lines up with those bloody wall messages. In reality, the weirder it sounds, the better. You can also just write out your version of the Mount Chiliad mural. Some people think it's a treasure map for the jetpack. Others think it's believed to be a timeline of UFO sightings. And a few people are sure it's Rockstar trolling everyone forever. This would make a lot more sense in the context of all the Chiliad time traveler graffiti and the 3 a.m. storm triggers we talked about earlier, but your personal read on it is just as valid as anything buried in the code. If this kind of slow burn bedtime style lore breakdown is your thing, those likes and subs actually do help. The algorithm is basically the FIB of YouTube. It watches everything, it's easily bribed, and it only sends more long-form stuff like this to people if it thinks you care. So if you want more 1-hour deep dives into ghosts, serial killers, and cut storylines, that's the easiest way to signal it. But no pressure on any of that. The main goal with this one was just to keep you company in Los Santos for a while, to sit in the passenger seat while you drove past Fort Zancudo, the Chiliad cable car, or that random shack in Sandy Shores that you swear is hiding something. Even if you never comment, never like, never sub, the city's still here when you need some noise and a few strange stories before bed. From here, we're going to let the intensity fade out even more. Fewer conspiracies, more quiet reflection. Just you, the map lights, and the feeling that somewhere out in Blaine County, an alien, a ghost, and a jetpack man are all sharing the same dark sky. So now just picture this. You're already out in Blaine County, engine idling low, and the sky over Mount Chiliad is that washed-out purple you only really notice when you're not in a gunfight. You roll past the cable car station and that mural is behind you, but it still feels like it's painted on the inside of your eyelids. Like if you ain't sleeping, you're still tracing the jetpack and the UFO in your head every time you blink. You ease the car into gear and start drifting south, down those narrow roads that wrap around the mountain. Off to your left, the black outline of the Mount Gordo cliff sits against the ocean, and you know Jolene's ghost is out there on the rock, frozen at 11 p.m., doing the world's saddest looped animation. You don't stop. You just let the headlights sweep the guardrail and pretend the wind is louder than whatever she's trying to spell out in blood on the stone. By the time you hit the flats near Grapeseed, the radio's turned almost all the way down. Just a talk show host mumbling about Epsilon and tax deductions, buried under the hum of the engine. You pass a beat-up barn with Infinite 8 graffiti barely catching the light, and it's believed that if you knew every number, every date, you could walk that whole murder route in order. In reality, you just keep driving, because stopping beside a serial killer's fan art in the dark is how horror movies start. Fort Zancudo's red lights show up next, blinking in the distance like the world's most aggressive keep out sign. You know that at 3 a.m., in a storm, a UFO parks itself right over that runway, and all the soldiers just act like it's part of the training schedule. You stay on the highway, tires hissing over the asphalt, and the base falls away in your rear view like you never saw anything. As the land starts to tilt down toward Los Santos, the glow hits you. First it's just a smear of orange on the horizon, then you're seeing individual towers, the Maze Bank logo, the Ferris wheel at Del Perro. Off to the side, up in the hills, the Epsilon compound sits perfectly lit, like a screensaver. Blue triangles and perfect hedges pretending they don't fund their enlightenment with stolen sports cars and brainwashed actors. The streets get smoother, the billboards get dumber, and the city opens up around you. You roll through Vinewood with the radio low, neon signs dragging across the hood in pink and cyan, and every intersection feels like it's hiding something. A side alley where Infinite 8 left another clue, a rooftop where a time traveler supposedly tagged a jetpack man, a storm drain where someone swears they saw Bigfoot right before they accidentally crashed into a wall and woke up at the hospital. You could pull over, chase one more rumor, reload one more save, or you just stay in the lane, let the lights blur, and follow the freeway until it's only you, the mini-map, and the quiet. You can keep that drive going in your next session, or just let Los Santos roll on behind your eyelids tonight. Because the weird part is, some of these stories only show up when you're not really looking for them. And the next one might already be waiting at the edge of your headlights, and that's kind of where we'll ease off the gas for tonight. You've just spent a long stretch drifting through jetpacks that might not exist, UFOs that only clock in at 3 a.m., and killers who leave math problems on rocks. So seriously, thanks for riding along this far. This is a long one, and the fact that you let Los Santos sit in your ears while you try to fall asleep says a lot about how deep you are in this world. In reality, not everyone wants bedtime stories about government black sites and cults that steal your savings in blue robes. If you nodded off back during Mount Chiliad, or somewhere between the Infinite Eight scribbles and Jolene's ghost on the cliffs, that's fine. That's kind of the point. This whole thing is built so you can drop in and out, miss entire sections, and it still feels like the same late-night drive. The video will still be here tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, waiting for you to rewind to the Chiliad mural, or replay the part where it's also revealed that Bigfoot might just be a guy in a suit tripping on peyote. If you ain't sleeping yet and you're still half watching the mini-map, just know we barely scratched half the micro-mysteries people argue about. There are background NPCs whose schedules suggest secret lives, radio callers who line up a little too well with Epsilon disappearances, and tiny graffiti tags that might be pointing at a fourth protagonist who never made it out of the design docs. It's believed that Rockstar left a bunch of this in as a kind of long-term prank, but it also explains why new theories keep popping up years after release. So you can rest now. Let the city keep talking without you. You can always come back and dig into the underwater UFO again, or replay the part about Michael's coma theory if you want to decide whether the entire game is just him zoning out during a Vinewood movie marathon, or just leave the video running low while you drift off. Let the sirens, helicopters, and talk radio conspiracies turn into a familiar, chaotic lullaby in the background. Before we cut away, picture Los Santos from way out past Blaine County, like you're hovering above the ocean, just outside the draw distance. The maze of freeways shrinks to a few soft lines. The skyscrapers turn into little clusters of pixels, and all you really see are tiny white and orange dots pulsing against the dark. Every one of those lights is holding some secret. A Chiliad believer staring at a mural, a cultist counting donations, an FIB handler listening in on someone's last phone call. We'll leave them all running for another night, and when you're ready to come back, they'll still be down there, waiting, pretending they were never being watched at all. And the weird part is, the game is still moving, even when you're not looking at it. GTA 5 has been out for over a decade, and people are still booting it up, walking down some alley in Vespucci, and suddenly noticing a poster, or a license plate, or a radio line that no one's ever really talked about before. A random NPC mutters something about the ones under the mountain, or a Life Invader ad quietly references a real-world conspiracy, and it's believed that some of those throwaway lines were only written to be heard by a tiny fraction of players. In reality, that's how a lot of the big theories started. One person staring at a wall a little too long, asking why the Infinite Eight messages line up with certain dates, or why the UFOs care so much about 3 a.m. storms. What almost nobody's fully mapped is how all the systems talk to each other. You get weather patterns, traffic density, NPC spawns, radio schedules, stock market swings, all layered on top of mission flags and hidden triggers. Fort Zancudo's saucer only shows up in a thunderstorm after 100% completion, but that suggests other events might be quietly chained to time, clouds, or who you're playing as. Maybe an Epsilon van only passes a certain intersection if it's raining and you're Franklin. Maybe a serial killer car only spawns if you've just heard a specific talk show confession. If you ain't sleeping, This is where your own game starts to matter. Next time you're driving at night, pay attention to what repeats. Does the same NPC jogger show up every time you pass Del Perro Pier at sunset? Do you keep getting the same pedestrian phone call about those people in the tunnels, only when it's foggy? You might shrug it off as RNG, but you're playing the one version of Los Santos nobody else will ever see exactly the same way. Pattern interrupt for you. Think about how many hours you've spent in this map, and how rarely you've just parked the car, turned the radio down, and watched. The way cops react differently depending on the car you're in. The way certain animals stop spawning after specific missions. The way some NPCs seem to recognize Michael's face long after the Ludendorff flashbacks are done. It's also revealed that a lot of ambient dialogue only triggers if you stand still long enough to hear it, which explains why so many clips show up 10 years late. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a giant corkboard, red string everywhere. But you don't have to solve anything. You're not being graded on whether you find Jetpack Man or decode every mural. Think of it more like being invited to sit with the people who do. When you notice something odd, you become part of that slow, ongoing story of players poking at the edges, asking if Rockstar left one last joke in the code. So as the city hums below, and the screen glow fades a little, just keep that in the back of your mind. Somewhere right now, an NPC pathing bug, a weather script, and a stray line of dialogue are lining up into the next theory. And if you're still awake the next time you load in, you might be the one who finally sees it, before it slips back into the noise and pretends it was never special at all. So now, just let all of that start to blur a little. You can picture Los Santos the way it looks when you pause the game and set the controller down, but this time you're not coming back for a while. Up on Vinewood Boulevard, the neon billboards that were screaming about movies, life coaches, and terrible energy drinks start to flicker and go dark one by one. Traffic that was honking and cutting each other off a minute ago thins out, until it's just a couple of tired taxis drifting past red lights that don't matter anymore. The radio chatter that explained half these conspiracies in throwaway lines turns into a low mumble, like you're tuning away from it. You can almost hear the talk show hosts keep arguing, but the volume slider in your head is slowly dropping, click by click. Out over the ocean, the UFO above Chiliad that you forced to spawn at 3 a.m. in the rain just glides back up through the clouds. The Fort Zancudo saucer powers down its beam and slides sideways into the fog, like it was never hovering over a secret jetpack room at all. It's believed that the underwater saucer near Polito just sinks a little deeper into the dark, where only the infinite 8 victims and a few curious sharks are still checking it out. All the aliens, all the leaked autopsies and peyote beasts just clock out for the night. The ghosts follow them. Jolene Cranley Evans fades off the cliff face, her scream cutting out mid-echo because you finally stopped zooming in on her with a sniper scope. The phantom cars on the Great Ocean Highway straighten up, drive normally for a second, then blink away like a despawned NPC. Even the cults get quiet. The Epsilon gates close. The altruists stop chanting. And the last blue robe hanging on a clothesline in the desert just sways in the wind instead of promising enlightenment. Mount Chiliad is still there, though. It just stands under the stars, black against a slightly less black sky, with the mural barely visible on the cable car wall. All those eggs and UFOs and jetpack symbols wait in the dark, not solving themselves, not changing, just staying exactly where Rockstar painted them. This would make a lot more sense in the context of a big reveal, but in reality, it's just a mountain keeping its secrets until the next player decides this is a long one and goes hunting again. So you can let your own map dim a bit. The mini-map in your mind's eye shrinks, the quest markers and question marks fade out, and even Lester's stock tips stop scrolling past. If you ain't sleeping, that's fine. Just let it all get a little farther away. Thanks for hanging out this long, for chasing every weird clue and half-finished theory with me. I hope you get good rest, good games, and good stories, in whatever order you need them. And when you're ready to really power down, just imagine the TV in your head go black with a soft pop of static, like an old set turning off. No harsh cut, no explosion, Just that quiet fuzz swallowing Los Santos until the next time you decide to switch it all back on.